It's about cars.
The fact that you do have real-life cars, you can build your own car, you can tune your own car, just the amount of customization you can do on the car, you just want to keep going until your garage is full of like every car you've ever dreamed about since you were a kid.
It's about passion.
He wants to create the ultimate game, which is basically indistinguishable from actually driving the car. So he's just, he's really shooting for perfection.
It's the story of the racing game that changed everything.
You look at this game and you say, nobody's ever going to be able to top this.
This is the history of Gran Turismo.
Prepare to qualify.
3, 2, 1, go!
Ever since the earliest days of gaming, developers have been trying to bring home the excitement of race car driving.
Back in the days, games were basically in two camps. You had the pure driving simulations like F1 racing simulators, the Ferrari sim from Sega, and you had arcade games like the Need for Speed titles.
You had a Ridge Racer, you had very, exaggerated, power slides, you had the whole Need for Speed series, which was great. Those are great games, don't get me wrong, but it's like the diehard race fans were missing that, that one simulation that took racing games to the next level.
Upon seeing the power of the PlayStation, a young game designer at Poly's Entertainment named Kazunori Yamauchi is determined to change that.
Mr. Yamauchi is a very quiet man. He's not very loud-spoken, but you talk to him about cars, and he'll light up like a Christmas tree. That's all he wants to talk about is cars. He's a car enthusiast, and a die-hard one at that.
There's a certain kind of magic when you meet Kazunori Yamauchi. He's not your typical game designer, producer, president.
Yamauchi envisions a racing game with licensed cars, which players can modify as if they were the real thing. This game will include realistic driving physics and challenging gameplay. But the higher-ups at Poly's aren't as excited about the concept as he is.
I always wanted to make a game like this, but my bosses and people around me didn't agree. They objected to making this game.
Yamauchi settles for working on a different type of racing game.
Ready, go! MotorTune Grand Prix!
MotorTune Grand Prix was Kazunori Yamauchi's first game. That was basically his first ventures into video gaming.
MotorTune was one of those things that you're like, what is that game? I mean, it was just wacky, weird, and then you sit down and you play it. And you start to see like all the things that they did right in the game. It's really cool. I mean, it's actually a very good game. It had a lot of elements that you finally started to learn its intricacies. It wasn't some little crazy kiddie game. It was actually a very, very solid racing game.
MotorTune Grand Prix was really interesting because it took kind of that art style, made famous by Tex Avery and the old Warner Brothers cartoons, combined it with a racing game.
So I made MotorTune, which is a more cartoon-like racing game. And I actually made two titles, MotorTune Grand Prix 1 and 2.
3, 2, 1, go!
Yamauchi uses the MotorTune series to test out design ideas for future use. Each car in the MotorTune games has its own unique handling and physics. Making the series proves to be a valuable experience. Now, with a couple of successful games under his belt, Yamauchi pitches his dream game once again.
I talked to my bosses again, and by that time, I was able to persuade them to make Gran Turismo. I had more credit than before, when I had never made a game title, but after making the MotorTune Grand Prix series, I had my credit and realized that I somehow had the talent to make games.
And with that, Gran Turismo shifts into first gear.
Gran Turismo is Italian for Grand Touring, and it's a specific type of racing as far as specifications and classes and whatnot. They took the experience from making two racing games, making the levels, messing with the physics, and seeing what they could do with the cars, and took it to develop the first Gran Turismo for PlayStation 1.
As development of Gran Turismo gets rolling, it becomes clear that Yamauchi's vision is more ambitious than any racing game ever created, and making this game a reality will be a challenge unlike any he has faced. It's 1993. Polly's Entertainment is now known as Polyphony Digital, and Kazunori Yamauchi is busy working on his dream game, Gran Turismo. He believes that the key to his game is the licensed cars.
I think licensed cars is what makes the whole Gran Turismo series. You don't have licensed cars, no one's going to buy it, flat out. Take away the licensed cars, you take away the whole appeal.
Instead of kind of having generic cars and having about 10 to 15 cars to select or unlock, suddenly you had hundreds of cars and you had hundreds of real-life manufacturers and really a focus on presenting these brands in their best light. That was a big step for Sony to actually do this.
The hundreds of cars in Gran Turismo not only have to look amazing, but they also have to handle like their real-life counterparts.
They take thousands upon thousands of photos for each car. Not just all the cars combined. Each car, I mean, they'll move the camera slightly. They'll rent helicopters to take pictures of the track and the cars. And they do also record all the vehicles, both from the exhaust, from the engine, and from the interior at idle speeds and increasing RPM.
They rented cars to race on a racetrack, and they took cars out and really kind of got a feel for how the car reacts, how the car handles.
Every car has its own kind of characteristics, where one car might have heavy understeer, one car might have heavy oversteer and slide around. And what Polyphony did was work very closely with the manufacturers to emulate all these characteristics that the vehicles have.
This level of detail does come with its own risks.
There are some casualties of war when making this game.
When I was working on the very first Gran Turismo, it was, of course, the first time for me to borrow so many cars from the car manufacturers. We were so excited, so happy, and we brought all of the cars to the circuit. We went into the circuit by ourselves and started racing. At the last corner, I saw black smoke coming up, and I thought, oh my God, something that shouldn't happen has happened. And I went to the last corner and saw one car totally crashed.
But for Yamauchi, the risks are worth it. And for every bit of realism he gives to the cars, he gives equal attention to the gameplay.
Customizing paint was an old hat, but customizing all the parts to get more performance out of the cars, that was really, really cool.
It's the perfect combination of gameplay and real-life car physics. It's probably the best there is out there. The fact that you do have real-life cars, you can tune your own car, just the amount of customization you can do on the car, from gear ratios to power bands. You want to keep racing, you want to keep winning money, you want to keep buying new cars, you want to keep buying parts for the cars. You just want to keep going until your garage is full of like every car you've ever dreamed about since you were a kid.
Instead of you driving, your absolute dream car right off the bat, you drove a normal car, something you would drive in real life. Like you'd start off with a little Acura, and then you work your way up until you get these great Le Mans cars. And Gran Turismo introduced this whole progression and you work your way up towards the cool cars.
On December 23rd, 1997, Polyphony releases Gran Turismo in the US. The game features 150 real-world cars, a AAA soundtrack, and support for Sony's new DualShock analog controller.
The DualShock was brought out specifically to be used with Gran Turismo, and the DualShock makes the game. You cannot go back to using a standard controller with Gran Turismo. It sucks, flat out. The ability to feel the vibration on either side of the controller, the inclusion of analog control, it really was the next step in immersing you in the game world.
People's reaction when they first saw the first Gran Turismo game was like, they're like, wow, someone did it right. They created a great racing engine, they put great cars in it, and they put all, real world tracks, and they made this true to life, sim game that is, has all the bells and whistles that, racing fans want. I was blown away by it.
The replay mode was just out of this world compared to everything else on the market at the time. It just looked so stunning. People were squinting their eyes going, this looks really real. And the trick really with the replay was, clever camera angles, really good camera moves and dolly shots that looked like a real TV broadcast. And couple that with the incredible car models, and you had something really special.
Gran Turismo has been the flagship franchise for the PlayStation. It's a game that really sold the system.
You look at this game and you say, nobody's ever going to be able to top this.
Gran Turismo really made the video game racing scene evolve.
But their ambitious approach to the sequel makes them careless, and as a result, they'll make a costly mistake. By February 1999, more than 6 million copies of Gran Turismo have been sold worldwide. But as popular as the game is, there are some who are quick to point out its flaws.
The no inclusion of car damage, a lot of people are turned off by it because they want the realism. So they want to see their fender get crunched when they run into a wall. They want their handling to degrade.
Back when Gran Turismo came out, you called up Honda, said, okay, we want your cars in the game and we're going to bash them up really good. They're going to say no. Nobody wants to see their car break down in a video game. The inability to get car damage into the game really impacted the gameplay, and it affected it negatively in that you can bounce off the rails in Gran Turismo. And that's one of the problems that a lot of car and racing fans complain about.
Some critiques are more valid than others.
I still get complaints from players about the license test in Gran Turismo. Everybody says, oh, it's too difficult, I can't get gold. I just want to get bronze so I can get my license and play. Why do they put these license tests in?
Looking back on it, if I did not do those license tests, I wouldn't know how to play the game. I wouldn't understand the racing line, I wouldn't understand how to brake, I wouldn't understand cornering, weight transfer, I wouldn't understand how to make the car handle. I was a better game player for it.
The praises outpace the criticisms, and Yamauchi quickly sets out to create a sequel which will surpass the first Gran Turismo in every way. Gran Turismo 2 speeds out to stores in 1999.
With the second game, I think Polyphony tried to make that game more accessible to a wider audience, doing two different things. One, a much bigger focus on the arcade mode. Suddenly you had a second disc that included the arcade mode instead of it just being a mode of the original game. And then number two, the variety of cars was just, it just went up, way up.
Gran Turismo 1 had 11 tracks, 3 endurance tracks, and it was on one disc. Gran Turismo 2 was 2 discs, had 22 tracks and 6 endurance, so you basically doubled it with Gran Turismo 2.
Now, obviously, the inclusion of rally racing is more than welcome.
In their rush to release a game with all these features, Polyphony gets careless.
GT2 probably came out sooner than it should have. Sony was in a rush for the Christmas holiday, and the biggest mortal sin that Sony did was there was a bug in the game that didn't let you finish the game with 100%.
Gamers are really serious about getting 100% of everything or getting the best ending, so this whole 98% completion number really taunted them. And I think that was for the hardcore, that was a huge issue. Even though they had every game, they had completed everything, they had every car in the game, 98% was like... And also there were some memory issues where saving your garage, you thought you had a certain amount of cars in your garage and you go back the next day, you're like, whoops, where's that car? I know I had it. There was a bug that deleted cars from your garage.
Of course we learned our lesson. We decided to never release a title unless we are totally confident and sure about it, instead of rushing it through and sending it out to the market.
Regardless of the bugs, gamers and critics all love Gran Turismo 2, and the sales prove it. 1 million copies are sold in only 6 weeks. 1 year later, Sony launches the PlayStation 2. A Gran Turismo game is promised for the new system.
I heard about Gran Turismo 2000 back before the PlayStation 2 came out, and it was amazing. Even if it was Gran Turismo 2 redone with better graphics, it was still Gran Turismo 2 with better graphics. 2000 came around, and there was no GT 2000, and that was when they decided to change name to GT3.
Rather than rushing another sequel out the door, Polyphony takes their time, making sure every detail of Gran Turismo 3 is just right.
When I created Gran Turismo 3, the huge difference from Gran Turismo 2 was the evolution of the hardware. Gran Turismo 2 was on the PlayStation 1, and 3 is on PlayStation 2, so there was a big change.
GT3 finally hits shelves in April 2001. And in just 1 day, it becomes the best-selling PS2 game of its time.
I was here last night at 8:30 because I wanted to be the first online to get Gran Turismo 3.
Although the game was delayed, I wouldn't say that the game was any worse than having to wait. It was an excellent game and a really good transition. And particularly in graphics side of things, it was like night and day.
Well, the game was amazing when you first looked at it. It was almost like you're looking at a TV and you're watching a car race happen right on screen.
My team and I were always using the maximum power that the PlayStation 2 had. I think that we used all of the methods that we could think of. That is unique to the Polyphony team to realize that.
It became so popular that Sony actually did a version of the PlayStation 2. There was actually a special Gran Turismo edition that actually had the game packed with the PS2.
Apparently that was their biggest selling bundle pack yet till this day.
Gran Turismo 3 is more than just a hit for Polyphony. Its influence will stretch further than anyone ever expected. The game industry is already in love with Gran Turismo, but they're not alone. Car makers soon begin to realize the value of having their cars featured in the GT series.
Gran Turismo series has also made cars popular in the United States that would have never been released over here unless it was for the game. The Subaru Impreza was a car that was in Gran Turismo and was not familiar with the American public until Gran Turismo came out. Japanese car manufacturers started thinking, wow, we should release these car models out in the US as well. So Gran Turismo helped car companies as well to introduce models into a territory that they may not have been considering.
After the release of Gran Turismo 3, Polyphony makes a collection of specialized games for a handful of car companies.
The Gran Turismo brand allowed Yamauchi to create different kinds of Gran Turismos for his own special interest.
A lot of American GT fans don't know about the GT concept series. It takes the cars that the automakers reveal at those shows and throws them into the game. And they add simulated specifications for these cars, and then you can race them around some of the tracks that have been in the Gran Turismo series.
The concept games aren't all that Polyphony is working on. It's no surprise that Gran Turismo 4 is also in development.
After Gran Turismo 3, Kazunori set out to do the next Gran Turismo. He's been working on this game for years and years. And, you know, again, he's pushing things to the next level. More cars, more tracks, more realism. He's going to race a car on a speedway like Laguna Seca, time how long it takes, and make sure, like, in the game, the timing will be exactly the same. He wants to create the ultimate game, which is basically indistinguishable from actually driving the car. So he's just, you know, he's really shooting for perfection.
In developing Gran Turismo 4, we've been making sure that all of the aspects supersede any of the previous titles that we have in our franchise. So, we wouldn't be able to pick out specific areas. We would like to say that all areas have been improved and enhanced.
And while it's hard to believe, the team will push the PS2 hardware even further than before.
Now you look at a still screenshot of Gran Turismo 4, and I think it's one of the first games where you actually sort of have to squint and really wonder, is that real? Is it a real photograph, or is it a video game?
And once again, Polyphony takes their time to ensure GT4 is everything they envision it to be.
Gran Turismo 4 was supposed to be out for the holiday season in 2004, and it got delayed sort of at the last minute because Kazunori is such a perfectionist about these things.
To him, it's not just a video game, it's not just a simulation. He calls it an encyclopedia. He wants to have people look at this disc in 5 to 10 years and say, oh wow, I don't remember that car. He's making his life's passion.
But the delays have claimed a casualty.
The big thing he had promised for Gran Turismo 4 was the idea of bringing in online racing to it. And that was going to be the big selling point.
Sony dropped the bomb that it wouldn't be able to release Gran Turismo with online play and make any sort of realistic release calendar.
Already, there are plans for future Gran Turismo games.
One thing that's coming forward is the PSP version of Gran Turismo. Like any hardware platform that Sony launches, there'll be a Gran Turismo.
But the future will also bring new challenges.
Kazunori's focused very much on the simulation aspect of the game, and we've seen other, you know, arcade-style games come in, like Burnout 3, that are tons of fun to play. One of my frustrations with the Gran Turismo series has always been that it's almost so realistic that it's no longer fun. I think what he's going to have to, you know, think about going forward is how do I keep making the game really fun for those arcade racing players while still creating a game that's the ultimate driving simulator.
Today, Polyphony's Gran Turismo series has sold more than 33 million copies worldwide and spawned numerous copycats.
Gran Turismo really, served as a wake-up call to the rest of the industry. We saw a lot of Gran Turismo clones on the market. In recent times, you've seen R-Racing Evolution from Namco. You had Project Gotham Racing on the Xbox. All games that attempted to be very much like Gran Turismo.
No matter what may come in the future, gamers will always remember the Gran Turismo franchise as the ultimate driving simulator.
Gran Turismo is getting players into racing games. It's creating this whole new generation of gearheads.
It's the ultimate car simulator. Gameplay is great, the driving physics are awesome. It's a fun game to play, and anybody that likes cars, anybody that likes racing, the game automatically appeals to them.
What's so amazing about Cars is he's not that cocky. You know, he just wants to put out a great game, and he's so passionate about it. Hey, this guy is putting his life, heart, and soul into this game.
I'm always surprised by the great success that we've had. Even today, it feels surreal.
I just needed a little help.
Tired of pounding buttons.
There's a lot of pressure from other gamers.
Who's to say what's right and what's wrong?
They made the codes.
It's just so easy.
Put in the code. Put in the code.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Get the latest cheat codes and walkthrough strategies for Half-Life 2.
I'm afraid I'm flying blank here.
Don't worry, I'll get you over the hump.
Cheat with Kristen Holt. Tuesday night at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific.
It took an old brand into a new direction.
When you develop under Tom Clancy franchise, it means that you need to validate and to justify everything.
It introduced the world to a new kind of hero.
Who doesn't want to sneak around in the shadows and still feel like you're a badass? I mean, you don't need to fire a rocket launcher to be able to do that.
Sam Fisher is this over-the-hill, cynical, jaded, middle-aged rogue.
You didn't answer my question.
And made one of the most revolutionary advances ever seen in a multiplayer game.
The multiplayer game is really what made Pandora tomorrow. It was just a whole new, different kind of multiplayer experience.
They can work together so that one of them could push another one on the enemies to knock them out.
This is the history of Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Delta Force. These elite military units are the stuff of legend and have inspired countless video games. Some give gamers a taste of the action, but others focus on a different aspect of Special Forces work.
Well, the stealth action game, it's a different kind of game from what we're used to in the fact that killing is not the priority in a stealth action game. You know, it's about not being detected. It's about not creating havoc out of a situation. It's really almost like walking into a place and leaving it as it was, as if you were never there. And I think that really creates a unique type of gameplay.
Early pioneers in the stealth action genre set a high standard.
When you talk about stealth, it's very hard to leave out the original Metal Gear. There was the hiding behind the walls and not being detected. But I think the latter generation games on the PlayStation, Metal Gear Solid, really picked up on the idea of, you know, hiding behind things, and especially with a 3D landscape, that created a whole new style of gameplay that really has taken off in this industry.
While gamers learn the ins and outs of this exciting new genre, best-selling author Tom Clancy lends his name to a line of realistic video games.
People were really enthusiastic, certainly around the industry, when Clancy announced a title. Well, only because his properties are so strong. He's probably the most popular fiction writer, certainly among men, easily, that there is. And the thought of those properties and those characters, Jack Ryan, etc., being translated to computer was very exciting.
It's only a matter of time before Ubisoft decides to blend stealth action with the Clancy brand. The title of this new game is Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell.
We wanted to make a stealth game where we can have a closer connection with the environment. So the base of the concept was to being able to play with lights and shadow, to modify your own environment so you can have a better shadow path to go through the areas and achieve your goals.
We chose to work with the Unreal Engine because it offered the power and the flexibility we need. Everything in the game world casts a shadow. This means that the player could interact with light and shadow like never before. They can use shadow to hide in. They could also detect enemies by seeing only the shadow. We add some visual touches like the soft physics system, which use what we call soft body. Soft body are anything in the environment that isn't solid, like curtains and flags.
One of the things that made people excited about the Splinter Cell series was that it really highlighted the details of a stealth element. And it tells you how hidden you are in the shadow and whether you're partly in the light or in the shadow, and definitely the thermal goggles and the night vision.
The idea was to make a fully interactive environment. Make it possible to shoot a computer, take a soda can, and throw it to distracting enemies. But much more importantly, to shoot out lights. Shooting lights allow for a different gameplay experience depending on basically how you play.
Ubisoft knows they'll need more than some pretty lighting to win over gamers, so they set out to create a lead character that will hold his own against the competition.
Hi there.
Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell is set to take stealth gaming to the next level. And at the center of it all is a government faction called the Third Echelon, and their key operative,
Sam Fisher. Hello, Colonel.
He's a rough and tumble guy, but he's got a sense of patriotism. And that's what makes him a real strong character. He's fighting for the country, and he's part of the secret Third Echelon organization, a subdivision of the NSA.
Are we working with the CIA's cooperation?
Through me, you're attached to a dozen of the best NSA minds we have.
You didn't answer my question.
Who doesn't want to sneak around in the shadows and still feel like you're a badass? I mean, you don't need to fire a rocket launcher to be able to do that. Of course, if you can, that's great. But just the range of abilities and the range of movement and the skill sets that have been set up for that character have really helped make him an icon of the current sort of stealth gaming vogue.
I really have a lot of respect for what they've done with Sam Fisher as a character. Your average character is a bulging biceps, quip-throwing Arnold Schwarzenegger retread, and they're just not interesting. Whereas Sam Fisher is this over-the-hill, cynical, jaded, middle-aged rogue.
What's the door code?
28469.
It was a pleasure working with you.
That's something great. That's not a character we've seen before. Michael Ironside really sells him.
Your guess is as good as mine, but I wouldn't recommend guessing.
I just thought that was a great pair of boots to be walking around in.
Like any real-world Special Forces soldier, Sam has both the tools and the talent to get the job done.
When you develop under Tom Clancy franchise, it means that you need to validate and to justify everything. It takes place in a very near future, so you need to use a political environment that is believable, that is linked to the actual situation. You need to use gadgets that are already existing, that are already used by special forces.
Sam's suit was based on a prototype that's being tested right now by the Navy SEALs, which is a wetsuit that you can wear in and out of water, and is a suit that adapts itself to temperature changes. We thought it would just fit the character, basically, since our game is based on a near future type of setting.
The great thing about the Splinter Cell series is the gadgets. He has got the scope that he can shove under the door and see what's going on the other side. He's got the chaff grenades, he's got thermal vision, and he's got night vision. But the gadgets aren't so far out. They're not so sci-fi. You know, these things are stuff that probably stealth operatives in the real world actually use, which makes it even more exciting to the player.
Sam's goggle became an important part of his appearance because we wanted to come up with a design that would make the character recognizable to the player. So the silhouette with the 3 dots makes Sam recognizable to a lot of people.
Sam's first mission is not stopping terrorists, and it's got nothing to do with saving the world. His first job is to take on one of the biggest legends in the world of gaming. In November 2002, Ubisoft releases Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell for the Xbox, and Sam Fisher goes head-to-head against Konami's Solid Snake. And this newcomer holds his own.
The Splinter Cell game was an overwhelming success. In many ways, it almost put the Xbox on the map as well. People bought the Xbox just to play Splinter Cell, and when you do that, that is a successful game. A game that sells a console is the best game that you can make.
More than 1 million copies of Splinter Cell are sold in half a year, turning it into a platinum hit. No one is surprised to hear that a sequel is on the way. But what gamers don't expect is for an entirely different team to be developing the game.
Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow was done by Ubisoft's Shanghai team. Montreal team took a break for a little bit. It just shows the trust that Ubisoft has with their different development teams. the Shanghai studio was extremely successful in creating a sequel.
In March 2004, Ubisoft releases Splinter Cell
Pandora Tomorrow
for the Xbox.
I thought the storyline was a lot deeper in Pandora Tomorrow, and it really fleshed out Sam Fisher even more for the fans. We knew who he was from the first game, but Pandora Tomorrow actually made him a little more human, and we understood more about Sam Fisher than we did in the first game.
In this sequel, Sam Fisher is tasked with stopping a terrorist group from releasing a deadly disease into the world. While the game includes the usual mix of new gadgets, levels, and moves, it's the new multiplayer mode that really makes an impact.
Pandora Tomorrow really is the first game that gives you two totally diametrically opposed ways to play.
Pandora Tomorrow has created an incredibly compelling multiplayer format between the spies and the mercenaries.
You've got one side that's sneaking around and the other side that's running around trying to blow those guys up through maximum violence. You've really got two entirely different games going on, but they merge seamlessly, and it's just an absolute dynamite multiplayer mode.
Using the Xbox Live Communicator has been an incredibly compelling part of a very original multiplayer experience.
Pandora Tomorrow is every bit as successful as the first Splinter Cell title, selling 1.7 million copies in a year. But the original developers of Splinter Cell haven't just been sitting around counting their money. They've been hard at work on a third game, and when it's revealed to the world, everyone is amazed. Both Splinter Cell and Pandora Tomorrow push the stealth action genre in new directions, but the third game in the series, Chaos Theory, is a giant leap into the next generation.
With Chaos Theory, they're definitely taking Splinter Cell to a new level. What they're trying to do with Chaos Theory is really create a true sequel in the single-player version.
When's the last time I saw you? I'm afraid I have no recollection of that, Senator. That's right!
We wanted to enlarge the boundaries of the game, to remove all the trial and error type of gameplay. We wanted to make the game more accessible for a larger audience.
Once again, Ubisoft Montreal crafts a frighteningly believable scenario to set the game in.
Sam Fisher's mission is to save the world from these kinds of attacks. I mean, it's no surprise there.
In Asia, there's an economic crisis in Japan. There's a tension going on between China and North Korea.
Events in the Yellow Sea took a turn for the worse today when North Korean and Chinese forces blockaded and boarded a Japanese cargo ship.
So when all of these players get involved in this, it gets very political and very ugly. And it's really about how Sam and Echelon and all of these major players interact with each other.
So Sam is sent in this area to check what's going on, to look for different information.
Why did you torture Morgan Holt? I don't know!
But Sam is always looking for what we think is the bad guy, and it turns out that at some point we're like, wow, it might be him.
You're not much good to me anymore.
Chaos Theory includes massive improvements in both graphics and sound.
So we've spent nearly 8 months to rebuild all our graphic engine from scratch.
People consider the graphics in the original Splinter Cell as very good. So we had a very tough challenge ahead to innovate, get like one full step ahead of everybody else.
We added an entire, what we call a sound masking system. The noise that's in an environment are very loud. Any sound that you make won't be heard.
Noisy down here. Makes it easy to sneak up on people.
With the new technology, details on all our characters is much improved. It allows us to make much more organic type of texture. Applying that on Sam obviously changes a little bit his look, his face. He might feel a little bit younger now, which is okay. We still kept those gray lines, gray hairs on the sides too, so which is also a signature for our main character.
We built this huge dynamic weather system. We built a dynamic wind system. There's ambient wind in the world. That wind scales dynamically. We built the dynamic rain system. And if you step in the water and step back out, you'll see that you're wet, and it changes in real time the mapping on the character, and over time you'll dry off.
The environment, that's one of the reasons why our budget in terms of resources for the hardware is so high in terms of graphics. Graphics are playing a key role in this game, like the light and shadows, how everything interacts together. It's part of the gameplay.
When you take the weather system and our dynamic sound and our dynamic normal mapping and specular highlighting and our dynamic wind, it's really just all of those systems acting together. And we say there's a storm front coming in, rain starts to fall harder, things start to get wet, they start to become more reflective. The enemy at the same time starts to get wet and they don't like to be wet, so they change their patrols to go places that are dry. Sam gets a lot more interesting details on him. The sound of thunder comes in and you'll see a flash of light which might give away your position from the lightning, but then the thunder can cover up the sound you make. So it's all these dynamic systems acting together.
New improvements in the game's AI will make Sam's opponents smarter and deadlier than ever.
You are going down!
We really wanted to improve the AI of the cards.
You're pathetic!
So we try to give them more human reaction, try to give them some sensation that they want to stay alive.
Mercy!
We want them to be scared, to be stressed. So if you play around with a guard and you just make some noise there, break a light there, but he never sees you, he's first going to react like, oh, that's strange.
What is that?
Who's playing with me? And his whole attitude is going to change, and he's going to be more stressed, looking around. What we did focus on was creating very good compatibility for the AI. What we did is actually make it completely automatic. So the NPC will be aware of where the player is looking at. When they work in group, they can actually call for cover fire. So we wanted to make sure that they would care for their life, they would go for cover, and they would be very tough to kill.
Instead of just, a handful of canned, what we call barks, lines that the AI says, did I hear something?
Did something just go past down there?
And now we have a much broader range of things that they can notice. They can talk to each other about things that they see in the world. If one guy hears a noise, he'll say, did you hear that? And the other guy will say,
hey, you! Come out here!
And then they form like an impromptu team.
Get covered!
So really much more sophisticated layering of their behaviors and the things that they can do to respond to things that they perceive.
The bad guys aren't the only ones with new tricks up their sleeves. Sam's better equipped than ever, and this time, the kid gloves are off. As Splinter Cell Chaos Theory takes shape, it becomes clear that this isn't just another sequel. The development team is set to surpass the previous games in every way. Sam Fisher will face even greater challenges than before.
We really want to improve on Sam's behavior. We wanted to add some new moves, and also wanted to make Sam more in contact with the whole environment.
Only the best agent can use a knife. Sniping is not cool anymore, see? So Sam's attitude and the rewards of the player by going closer, because you can perform close action, close stealth. So this is an area that was very important for us. New moves, obviously, for Sam, new gadgets.
We wanted to give him some more spectacular moves. The main one is the pro move, which is going on the horizontal pipe, just waiting for an NPC to get just under him and grab him and choke him. One of the few moves that we added was to be able to get close to characters, either grab them or knock them out or kill them.
Even the environment can become a useful tool.
There's the physics system. One of the issues we had in the original Splinter Cell was that we didn't have ragdolls. So when we were killing an enemy or just knocking him out, he was actually passing through objects, like a chair, the walls, and we got rid of that. So now the NPC, when they die, they just collide with their environment. Sam Fisher can interact with the body. You can actually pick a body, carry it on your shoulder. You can drop it somewhere. You can use it as a weapon. So it's very strategic.
You can bash door to knock out an enemy that stands just behind a door.
These new additions give players more freedom to play Chaos Theory any way they want.
If you decide to shoot at everyone or to kill everyone, the game supports it. However, it's going to be harder, and you might miss some opportunity or secondary objectives that you would have otherwise. Those who want to replay the game or try it as a shooter, why not? It's your game, you decide how you want to play. I mean, we're not the one who's going to tell you how to play, so we decided to design a game that supports any kinds of situation.
The award-winning multiplayer modes from Pandora Tomorrow are also improved upon and expanded.
In Chaos Theory, we're introducing another new game mode, which is the co-op. Co-op is a mission-based campaign where two rookie agents are going on a field on a side story of what Sam Fisher does.
There was a lot of challenge in the co-op mode, having two playable characters acting at the same time and making very specific action together, to lock together to do some specific move and sometimes interact with a card or something.
Co-op is very important because think of everything you can do for single player. Imagine that you now have a partner that can help each other to reach certain area they couldn't otherwise. They can work together so that one of them could push another one on the enemies to knock them out, so you cannot do it by yourself anymore. You got to trust a partner.
Get over here and let's get moving.
The replay value behind it with all those elements is nearly unlimited.
Today, the Splinter Cell series has sold 9.7 million copies worldwide. The series has even spawned a New York Times best-selling novel. The 2005 release of Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is just another step for this revolutionary series.
Splinter Cell is a type of series that's probably going to have a lot of longevity, mainly because it's a game that's steeped in reality. This is happening somewhere in the world right now. For that fact alone, I think they can always update the Splinter Cell series. It's a great franchise to really keep it rolling with the times.
I just needed a little help.
Tired of pounding buttons.
There's a lot of pressure from other gamers.
Who's to say what's right and what's wrong?
They made the codes.
It's just so easy.
Put in the code. Put in the code.
I'm so sorry.
Get cheats and walk through strategies for Resident Evil 4.
You are a long way from home, cowboy.
I've got a plethora of strategies. Don't be scared. I'm right behind you.
Cheat with Kristen Holt, Tuesday night at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific.
He was only 6 when he found his calling.
I started folding over typing paper, stapling it together, and drawing comic books.
And the path he chose wasn't easy.
And I would come over and he'd tell me how terrible my work was.
That stuff is okay. I mean, that stuff looks like a guy who's just breaking into comics, like an artist's first paying gig.
I reached the point where beyond just berating me and telling me to move back to Vermont because I was hopeless.
But he would go on to become one of the greatest names in comic book history.
First time I saw his work, I said, this is a big new talent emerging.
You felt like you were getting his blood, sweat, and tears on the page.
And I've never read any graphic novels that are as intense as his.
He is one of the few creators who comes into a medium and really makes it look at itself in a different light.
He's his own little legend.
What goes on in his brain is something so crazy, beautiful, sexy, violent, cool, genius.
Icons presents the one and only Frank Miller. In 1963, a 6-year-old boy named Frank Miller is introduced to a millionaire playboy named Bruce Wayne by DC Comics.
I picked it up in a department store. It was back when they sold comic books in department stores. I picked it up and I just opened it and I just fell in. And I like to say that even though it cost 25 cents, I bought it.
This chance meeting marks the beginning of what will be a lifelong passion.
I started folding over typing paper, stapling it together and drawing comic books. I fell in love with crime fiction. Everything from Mickey Spillane to Dashiell Hammett to Raymond Chandler. I kept drawing comics. Then I moved to New York to try to break in.
Frank's first job in New York has a bit too much in common with the crime novels he enjoyed so much as a kid.
I was a carpenter. I mean, I'm sort of a carpenter. I helped hang doors and things in a loft that turned out to be run by a coke dealer. So yeah, I had to run away from mafia guns at one point.
It's not long until the aspiring comic book creator meets up with the legendary Neil Adams.
Neil Adams was an artist who came to comics in the late 60s and really brought a whole new school of art to superhero comic books, a very literal realism. The characters he drew looked real. I mean, as real as we'd ever seen them, and they weren't stylized.
Neil was my mentor. I mean, he was very generous with his time. I simply called him up and asked him if I could show him my pictures. And he had me over to his studio. He was running a big shop then that did advertising work. I never really worked there, but he would always take my phone call, and I would come over and he'd tell me how terrible my work was. I reached the point where, beyond just berating me and telling me to move back to Vermont because I was hopeless, he'd pull out tracing paper and start correcting me.
But Frank keeps trying, and one day his efforts pay off.
And then one day I came in and he just picked up the phone to Gold Key Comics and said, I got somebody for you. And he got me my first job. It was Twilight Zone Comics. I spent a week drawing every page. Usually that's something you do within a day. It was my first professional job, and I took forever on it. It was 3 pages long, and I took 3 weeks to draw it. But it's a start.
That stuff is okay. I mean, that stuff looks like a guy who's just breaking into comics, you know. It looks like an artist's first paying gig. Hindsight being 2020, you can see the flashes of Frank Miller there. You can see what the potential, what he could become.
Soon, other doors are opened.
Frank Miller had done a couple issues of Spectacular Spider-Man, which had featured Daredevil in them.
Yeah, Daredevil was mine. I like Daredevil because I was always doing characters that were flawed. And Daredevil had probably the biggest handicap of all. He was blind.
It became clear that was what he wanted to do, and so they gave him a shot at doing Daredevil.
Marvel puts Frank Miller to work on Daredevil, and what he does with the red-suited crime fighter will send shockwaves throughout the comic book universe. In May 1979, Frank Miller begins what will become a legendary run on Marvel Comics' Daredevil.
I became the pencil artist on Marvel's Daredevil, working with writer Roger McKenzie and my collaborator Klaus Jensen, who inked it, and eventually I took over writing it.
He really reinvented Daredevil.
The thing that I think made Frank's run on Daredevil and Elektra so special was that Frank is a New Yorker and he lives in New York and he knows the city inside and out. So he was able to bring that kind of gritty Hell's Kitchen from first-hand experience to the Daredevil Elektra universe.
He made him a much darker character. Wrote his own material, he drew it, and he had a very earthy, hard-edged style to both his writing and to his artwork. The first time I saw his work, I said, this is a big new talent emerging.
In Daredevil issue 168, he introduces the world to Elektra.
Daredevil had a long run of girlfriends, but I thought, how about one that could kick his butt? And also, how about her being a bad guy? Which is what everybody gets wrong about Elektra. They try to make her nice. They try to make her good. She's not good. She's very, very bad. She just feels bad about being bad.
I thought Elektra was a wonderful character, and he did her beautifully, and there hadn't been a character like Elektra before.
She was the first female anti-hero. Sometimes she would act with compassion, sometimes she was a cold-blooded killer. That's what superhero romance should be. Frank said it himself, their romances should be bigger than life, just like their adventures are.
But Frank doesn't intend for Elektra to be around long term.
It was inevitable. I was plotting as I went, but it became very obvious that she had to go. There was no other way to take it. I mean, she wasn't going to end up making Bob for Matt. So I went to editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, just popped into his office and said, Jim, I really, I think I'm going to have to kill Elektra. And he sighed. He looked like he had a headache. And he said, tell me a story, Frank. And I told him my story, and he said, great, do it.
The death of Elektra is like, for everyone of my generation, it's a total benchmark for comics in general. You read it, and you were just like, oh my God, I can't believe that he did this.
Here's Daredevil, he's a blind superhero. He loses Elektra, a woman he loves, who dies in his arms. That's in a comic book. Back then, this kind of stuff just didn't happen. And Frank Miller was a storyteller and an artist who was willing to make these sort of bold moves and say, look, I'm writing good stories. I'm not just trying to show comics to kids. I'm trying to make good stories.
In July 1983, Frank Miller leaves Marvel to work on an original creation, once again doing his own writing and penciling.
After Daredevil, Frank Miller went over to DC Comics and scored, at the time, a very unique deal for a creator-owned book. Ronin was something he created, that he came up with. It was kind of a sci-fi, samurai, urban decay story that took a lot of elements and a lot of genres and kind of crammed them all together.
Ronin is an extremely strange project. I'm amazed it was ever greenlighted, where it takes place in the future. That stuff was so strange back then. You never saw anything like that.
Well, Ronin was a joy to do. As much as I loved doing Daredevil, Ronin was scarier to work on, much more challenging, much more ambitious. I just learned a ton. I love that book because it was me with reckless abandon absorbing the Japanese and the French. It was a wild mix, and it was a reckless piece of work, but I still love it.
Miller hires an artist named Lynn Varley to be the inker for Ronin, marking the start of what will be a long-standing professional relationship, and more. Meanwhile, Frank's popularity continues to grow, and he gets bigger and better offers.
DC Comics had been on me to do Batman for a long time, and I'd always felt too intimidated by it. I mean, I just felt like the character was too big for me. I didn't really have what it took for it. And then, you know, one day I was just thinking about it. All of a sudden, I realized that, I was about to turn 30. And Batman was permanently 29. And I was going to be damned if I was older than Batman. So I started concocting this story where he was in his 50s and coming out of retirement and with a much harder edge. DC went with just about every single thing I proposed.
Fate once again brings together Frank Miller and the Dark Knight. What happens next will be the stuff of legends. In March 1986, DC Comics releases the first issue of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns. The arrival of this unique new Batman tale is groundbreaking.
But when Frank came along, he went back and he'd taken what was kind of primary about Batman, this urban warrior, and dealt with the idea that he was disillusioned, he was older, he had kind of given up the fight. And that really is a classic mythological story of the old warrior who comes back for one last hurrah against the forces of evil.
What people would have expected from Frank would be to basically do Daredevil with a cape. He didn't get that. He wasn't the same lean, lanky, athletic figure that Daredevil was. He had instead changed Batman into this big, hulking brute of a character.
He set a new tone for Batman. What Frank Miller did was delve into the psyche of somebody who would be so deeply disturbed as to put on a costume and do these things, and how really inhuman that psyche is. The Dark Knight series that Frank Miller did is one of the core books that said, you know what? The comic book medium is for people of all ages, and I can write an adult, mature storyline.
Dark Knight Returns. There was another one of those times where life just felt explosive because the work was just flying at me.
And Lynn Varley plays an increasingly large role in her partnership with Frank. Not only is she the colorist for The Dark Knight Returns, but she also helps with the dialogue.
Oh, she's great. Those two are probably on a lot of levels a match made in heaven. What she did on Dark Knight was, at the time, revolutionary. You'd never seen coloring like that. They're one of the best artist-colorists collaborations that we've seen in comics.
Eventually, Frank Miller and Lynn Varley become husband and wife. Soon after the release of The Dark Knight Returns, Hollywood comes knocking on Frank's door.
Well, actually what happened was, this is going to sound strange, but I moved from New York to Los Angeles to find out what California was like. I really didn't have any designs on movie work at all. And then one morning the phone rang, and it was the producer of RoboCop asking me if I'd be up for writing a sequel. And I loved the movie, and I thought, yeah, I can work in movies. And I just fell into that. For the next couple of years, I was completely wrapped up.
But there are some harsh lessons to be learned in Tinseltown.
Well, RoboCop 2 was the more intense of the two for me because I was on the set every day and watched the whole process. RoboCop 3, I was a little more distant because I didn't go to the set or anything. In both cases, I learned the same lesson, though. Don't be the writer. The director's got the power. The screenplay is a fire hydrant. There's a row of dogs around the block waiting for it.
Eventually, Miller decides he's had enough.
When I just decided I couldn't handle it anymore and went away.
After leaving the movie scene, he dives into a brand new original project with Dark Horse Comics.
I'd gone through the longest period of my life not drawing, which was 2 years. So I sat down in my new home in Hollywood. I just sat at my drawing board and decided I was going to start drawing again, and I was going to draw exactly what I want. Damn Hollywood. And I started Sin City.
You felt like you were getting Frank at his most committed as a creator. I mean, you felt like you were getting his blood, sweat, and tears on the page.
And I draw this comic book that's everything I always wanted to draw. First three priorities were tough guys in trench coats, beautiful women, and vintage cars.
Well, Sin City is a marvelous achievement in terms of sequential art. These are noir comics where light and shadow and tones of gray are what communicate the emotion rather than colors.
With Sin City, here's somebody who just wanted to tell these great kick-ass crime stories and told them in a way that nobody else could imagine or envision them. There's a hard edge to them, there's a brutality to them. There's also a really rough beauty and an elegance to them.
Sin City has been viewed as really one of the pinnacles of Frank Miller's art achievements and storytelling abilities.
And I went on for 12 years to draw my Sin City, and was absolutely in love with it.
The Sin City series of comic books is another stunning success for Miller. Ironically, the work that best represents his true passion will bring him back to an industry he thought he was done with.
Knife's got to go flying because I take his weapons away from him.
After leaving the film industry, Frank Miller works on some of his most memorable books. Graphic novels such as Hard Boiled and 300 are all critical successes. But it's Sin City that captures the attention of director Robert Rodriguez, the man behind Once Upon a Time in Mexico and Desperado.
Robert Rodriguez hunted me down like a dog.
I don't want to make Robert Rodriguez's Sin City. I want to make Frank Miller's Sin City because I love that material so much. And it was so good the way it was. I thought this would be a great movie as is on screen.
When he first approached me, I was just awful. I really didn't want my baby loose. Robert called me up and said, fly to Austin, we'll do the test, and we'll see if we want to do this thing or not. And I said, sure. And I showed up in Austin, and there was Josh Hartnett standing with Robert's crew, and there was Marley Shelton. Marley Shelton came over and asked me a question about a character, and the hook was in my mouth. Robert had pulled it off, and I never looked back.
Clear the set, let's line it up, please.
Sin City, the movie, begins filming in March 2004.
But Robert's idea was to make it an anthology. It has a short story and 3 of the novels incorporated, about 40 minutes each.
Sin City, the graphic novel That Yellow Bastard, and The Big Fat Kill.
You move from one to the other, and you really get a sense that it's a single world.
An incredible all-star cast is put together to bring the citizens of Sin City to the silver screen.
As we approached people, some of them responded just to the chance to work with Robert. Some responded to the material. I'll never forget the afternoon that Robert and I went to Bruce Willis's house. At this point, we had what was called the test. We put it on Bruce's big screen. Bruce sat on a bare mattress and watched it. And he kind of stood up and said, "Those the words from the book?" And Robert said, "Yeah." I'm in.
And then the cast is beyond, you know, from Mickey Rourke to Benicio del Toro to Clive Owen to Rosario Dawson, Jamie King, Brittany Murphy, Elijah Wood, Josh Hartnett. I mean, the cast is insane.
Shelley is a waitress from the section of Sin City called Old Town. Shelley's a bit of a broad, and she's a broad whose heart is torn. She's the sad waitress with the heart of gold. It was only because I felt sorry for him.
I'll call you later.
No, don't go!
I play Nancy Callahan, and I think she was inspired by Frank Miller's real-life niece. Of course, in Frank's world, I'm a stripper, but...
Well, at that point, it was my guy. I guess at that point, Jackie Boy became mine.
Get in the car, baby. You want to see what I got?
The cast, it just came together. It was almost like everybody wanted to be in this thing.
And for the first time ever, Frank Miller tries his hand at directing.
It's been really wonderful for him to not only be a part of the process, but not just be a writer, but be considered a director and be able to give input.
Can we switch sides on the stethoscope? I expected the worst, and I got the best. I loved it. I loved directing. I had no idea what it would be like. I didn't know how much I'd love actors.
It was essential to have Frank Miller on set every day because it's his baby, it's his world. He knows everything. He wrote all the dialogue, he created all the characters. You know, how can you do Sin City without Frank Miller?
And I had Frank to go and talk to about character and why we were here and what was going on in the scene and about every little nuance.
It was great to have Frank there. We could go and ask him, you know, this drawing, what's he doing here? Where is he coming from?
When I go to work on Sin City, it was Frank Miller, co-directed by Robert Rodriguez, and then Quentin was guest directing the days that I was there, which was very fortunate on my behalf to have three such extraordinary directors that all fit so perfectly with each other.
Dimension Films releases Sin City on April 1st, 2005. And while audiences are introduced to the gritty world of Basin City, Frank Miller is still hard at work on the comics he loves.
It's called Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder, and it's going to feature a young Batman.
Today, Frank Miller remains one of the greatest names in comics. His impact on the world of comics is undeniable, and his work will continue to inspire generations to come.
Frank's comics are incredible and dark and twisted and just amazing. And I've never read any graphic novels that are as intense as his.
He's his own little legend.
Frank's work has had an amazing effect on the comic book industry. He is one of the few creators who comes into a medium and sets it on its ear and really makes it look at itself in a different light.
What goes on in his brain is something so crazy, beautiful, sexy, violent, cool, genius.
I don't know that I'd compare anybody to Frank Miller. I mean, I think Frank is really in a category all of his own.
One thing about entertainment, whether it's comic books or movies, is that you can't imagine the fate of the piece of work. I proceed with comic films, I think we all do, and hope that the audience will love it. I've had the experience of a lifetime.
And my office. Here's my office here. Here we are. Come on in, won't you?
From the offices of a new game studio.
And this is our test department. Very exciting. Hello, testers.
You know, everybody wants to start their own company eventually.
An industry legend.
This is the exciting manner in which I work at my desk.
Tim certainly does not follow the herd. He goes his own way for good or ill. That's something I admire.
And his team of talented game developers.
I'm an environment artist.
I'm the animation supervisor. I'm an animator. And I'm the lead game tester.
I am the orderly, and I run a quiet, peaceful, insane asylum.
Will race the clock to ship their very first game.
We put Bruce here because we were always battling against time.
We've been working on the game for 3.5 years.
This is one of the worst crunches I've ever seen. Sort of appalling. We decided at the very last minute to actually test it.
This is the story of Tim Schafer and the final week of Psychonauts.
What could possibly go wrong? Hello, welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome, Double Fine. Please, everyone is welcome at Double Fine. We've been here about a year and a half. We moved over one block nicer, one block fancier. Here's our production area. Hello, everybody. Say hi. That's Kelly and Melina. That's Carolyn, our executive producer. Hey, hello.
I'm an executive producer. I'm kind of the acting production person. I do just about everything the company needs to allow Tim to be 100% creative as much as possible.
Here's our art department. It's Chris. Hello, Chris. Hello. Playing the game, excellent game Psychonauts right now. Scott Campbell, our art director. This is the camera.
I draw stuff and show Tim, and it's like a long process of like him liking it or not liking it or kind of liking it.
What are you making of? So who's that character? Okay, so anyway. Here's our gameplay programming department. Hello, gameplay programmers. So hello.
This week, Tim Schafer and his team of game developers are putting finishing touches on their first game, Psychonauts.
We've been working on the game for 3.5 years. A lot of the animation's been done for quite a while.
This is our last week of working on Psychonauts.
I think this week is this Friday night is the last build. We just have to have this done, C and E, and so this is the final build. So this week is the last bit of time we have to touch it.
Game developers call this
Crunch mode is in the very, very last phases of the game, and it's basically you just want to put as many hours into the game and to test it.
We've done everything creatively we're going to do to the game. Those are good. That's too low. Oh my god, that's terrible.
Man, you can't ship it.
People would return the game if they saw that. And now we just have to play it for a certain amount of time and make sure no new bugs come up. So it can't crash, it can't slow down, nothing really bad can happen. Lies. We can't write any more dialogue or add any more ideas to it, but we can definitely make sure it's not going to crash or anything.
We are going to be testing at least probably 12 hours a day, trying to find any last showstoppers, any bugs that we can't ship.
And you can't punch at all?
The goal is to have everyone playing through the game. There's a team of over 40 people. All of us and all of Majesco's resources are getting through the entire game, so making sure the game is ready to go out.
What happens if it's not done by Friday?
Oh, I don't know. We're screwed. Yeah. What could possibly go wrong? No. Can't punch.
Tim Schafer's first taste of gaming happens when the Magnavox Odyssey is released in 1972.
Way back when I was a kid, my dad brought home Odyssey 1, which was the black and white variations of Pong.
He quickly becomes one of the world's first hardcore gamers.
Ever since then, I was hooked on games. And then we got our Atari 2600. Yeah, and went from there to Atari computers, and I got a 400 and an 800, and then I spent all my teenage years at home toiling over that computer in the rec room of our house, scaring my whole family.
And like many gamers of his time, Tim Schafer begins creating his own games.
I started as best I could to actually make them myself when I had the computer, although my efforts were really unspectacular. In BASIC, I tried to do a Pong in BASIC, and it was really slow. So I tried to do Galaxian in assembly language, and I just realized I wasn't really smart enough to do that. So I had this one game about a helicopter that was dropping babies, and you had to catch them. I got pretty far with that one.
But when he attends college at UC Berkeley, Schafer tries to be more realistic about his future.
I never really thought that games were what I was going to end up doing. So as I went to college, I did more computer classes, and I started to drift into writing. I was going to be a writer who had a really boring computer programming database job during the day, and then write at night.
He really is a really smart guy, a really funny guy, satirical.
Off the top of my head, the first funny game I remember was Leisure Suit Larry or Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I guess Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy came out first.
You can really tell that he has an opinion on everything.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else funny in games ever.
And he's not afraid to tell you about it.
I think it was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. No, I can't be right.
Sometimes in a world where everybody seems to kind of be afraid to say what they think or do what they think or follow the herd.
Okay. Anything funny before Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Tim certainly does not follow the herd. He goes his own way.
Yeah, I would say the first humor games I remember was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
And that's something I admire.
But it turns out that fate has a different plan for Tim Schafer.
I graduated, and I was going to second interview this database company, and right then I saw this job listing at LucasArts, which was then called Lucasfilm Games. This is more kind of glamorous looking. And I loved the first Lucasfilm games, like Rescue Fractalus and Ball Blazer. But a friend of mine that's living a pirated copy of it, so I called it Ball Blaster during my interview. I was like, yeah, I really like your game, Ball Blaster. And they're like, Ball Blaster, huh? That's what it was called when it was pirated. So I don't know how I got that job, but somehow I got that job.
Now, with his foot in the door, Schafer will take his first step into gaming history.
At a unique summer camp,
Don't you train psychonauts here?
one cadet must stop an evil genius from leaving the world brainless. One of our favorite games ever, says official Xbox magazine.
In other words, psychonauts!
Rated T for teen.
And let's see if we can get to 0 bugs by dinner. All right, we're good.
It looks like we should be able to get done what's on the list by dinner. Is that what you're saying? By dinner.
Food dependent, yeah.
Only I get to eat.
Whoa.
Yeah, so we're going to lock down, and it's got to fit a very strict set of rules. Did I make that clear? We're going to fix all the bugs on the list.
Got a short list of bugs. When they get even shorter is what's due by dinner. It definitely looks doable, and we're setting dinner as our lockdown. So after dinner, everyone's got a controller in their hand, everyone's playing the game, and they'll test it straight through till Friday. So we are in lockdown after dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Any questions?
What's for dinner tonight?
I don't know. Kelly, what's for dinner tonight? What do you want for dinner?
Okay, that's the biggest concern. I think we're done.
As Tim Schafer takes his first baby steps in the gaming industry, he finds he has some catching up to do.
The job description that I applied for was called assistant designer / programmer. And then I found out once we got there that they were actually called scumlets, which was the lowest rung on the programming totem pole there. That we were just the junior programmers who used Scum, which was the script creation utility for Maniac Mansion.
The rookie game developer quickly starts making new friends.
They had nothing for us to do for like 3 months. It was all up to just whatever we'd come up with each day to try to learn the language. And Dave Grossman and I came up with a lot of just joke stuff.
Which then leads to his first project.
It turns out Ron Gilbert was starting his Monkey Island game. And he was like, okay, I want it to be kind of maybe a comedy game. So they took me and Dave and set us to work on it.
Tim was one of those guys who was just a hard-working scripter for the Scum games. But he was just this really fun guy who could tell great stories, and he was just quick-witted, you know? He'd say anything. He's got a comeback for you. He was one of those people that you could tell was going to just drive, you know, some amazing creative visions.
We started working on the Monkey Island game, and Ron had the design in his head, and there were some flow charts, and there was some background art. We started just to get the thing up and running, throwing in characters and just making them say dumb things that we thought was funny. And we were all 4 of the original scumlets in this room, and we would just write dialogue that would crack us up.
Tim Schafer is hilarious in real life. All his observations, his whole way of viewing the world is just kind of like a little twisted. Just definitely funny.
You know, every afternoon, Ron would come in maybe, and he'd check out the new dialogue we'd written. And we didn't think it was actual game dialogue. We just thought we were writing stuff to entertain each other. And it turns out he's like, no, we're using this. This is it. This is the game. Ron would come in the afternoon. He'd either laugh or not, and that was like a big deal. And he was really involved in the game. Me, I would do a third of it, Dave would do a third of it, and Ron would do a third of it on the first game. Programming and writing dialogue.
Tim Schafer and his coworkers come up with a storyline about a wannabe swashbuckler named Guybrush Threepwood and his quest to become a mighty pirate.
Your favorite moments in the Monkey Island games were largely a result of Tim's hard work and cleverness. It was really inspiring to be working with someone having just as much fun.
In 1990, development on The Secret of Monkey Island wraps up, and Lucasfilm Games releases the quirky new adventure game for the PC. But its launch hits a small snag.
LucasArts was a small company then, and right at the end of it, they found out that there was a big order that they could fill, but they didn't have the manufacturing capacity to do it. It's like, hey, let's all go down to the factory and pack it ourselves. And we all put everyone in the car, and we drove down to this warehouse, and we all went in there, and we were all putting manuals together, and we were all just stuffing boxes and shrink wrapping them. So the original Monkey Island shipment was done by the programmers and the artists and all of us in the company. With love, yeah.
As copies of The Secret of Monkey Island head out to stores all over America, Tim Schafer and his co-workers leave the fate of their careers in the hands of gamers.
Hi, can I place an order for delivery? This is Kelly at Double Fine. I'd like to get 2 orders of chicken curry, 3 orders of matar mushroom, 6 orders of saag paneer, 7 orders of chicken tikka masala. Yeah, and can we get it made extra spicy? And then I'd like to get 25 orders of naan, 3 orders of samosa, and 2 cucumber salads. Kelly? Yeah. Hello? Where'd he go? Oh man, I just got disconnected.
You said earlier that you guys were going to wait to have dinner until all the bugs were fixed.
Yeah, but then we'd starve the team. I kind of cheated. I added some bugs to the lockdown list. This is doable tonight. So I think we'll finish this before we go home tonight. Late. Late. Probably go after midnight. That was pretty important. And we'll do whatever we need. We will cater in food. We'll bring in massage therapists and we'll liquor them up. And bring in sugar. That makes people happy.
Oh, I'm so not gonna win against the girl.
During crunch time, it's common for developers to work 12-hour shifts. At Double Fine, it's no different.
The game itself motivates the team. They're motivated first and foremost by pride in their work. Tim motivates people as well. When he sees something cool and unique, he tells them.
Nice. Okay. Sweet. Okay. Okay, that's 1 bug.
That makes people happy.
Well, it's 8:44. Yep, leaving for the night. I feel a little bit bad because the other programmers are still there and they're still working. If you've already put in a 12-hour day, then you have to take care of your body. There's a lot of sick people here, and it's not surprising.
Am I tired? Kinda. We've been crunching for quite a while. It helps to know that this is our last week.
I work about 80 hours a week, or I have been. This is like the most unglamorous part of my job. And it's not necessarily a requirement. There's just so much miscellaneous shit. Just, sorry.
Don't worry about it.
So much stuff that they just throw at me to do. We gotta keep the team caffeinated, so they'll stay up all night. Check it out.
I'm a caffeine addict. I'll pick the habit once the game's over, I guess.
The 1990 release of Monkey Island is a huge success for Lucasfilm Games.
One of the hardest things to do in a game is get humor across, because as the game creator, you can't control the pace of the game. So much humor depends on pacing. And so the fact that the Monkey Island series is just hilarious, like it's just a testament to the skill of the designers.
And just like in Hollywood, a sequel starts right away.
After Monkey Island 1, we started making LeChuck's Revenge right away.
Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge, is an even bigger hit than the original. Its success gives Schafer and Dave Grossman a chance to finally head up their own game.
They told Dave and I that we could do our own game. Ron had kind of an idea for a sequel to Maniac Mansion.
But now I know that I must go back to the mansion.
We started with that and just kind of ran with it.
The name of this new adventure game is...
Data Tech was the first game I was a project leader on, so we were in charge of the show for the first time, Dave and I. We wrote the design and got some programmers to help us with it, and we had a team just like 3 animators.
Tim Schafer and his team craft another hilarious storyline, this time involving a gang of misfits who travel through time in specially modified porta potties, known as...
the Gran.
Dave and I just kind of ran with it. After we took the characters we liked and then put in the heavy metal band roadie.
Bernard, float over here so I can punch you.
And the crazed med student.
What have you done this time, you meddling milk test?
That game to me was like things that I loved about LucasArts back in the day. Those games were fun. Those games had attitude.
Look, Hoagie, it's a hamster. Just what I need for dissection lab tomorrow.
I think I need that for the band, Laverne. We could bite its head off or whatever.
Something different in the crowd back then.
It was a lot of fun. Day of the Tentacle was one of the most fun ones to make.
Day of the Tentacle has PC gamers in stitches when it's released in 1993. But by now, adventure games are facing a serious decline. LucasArts decides that something must be done to save the genre.
The schedule has been a really hard one to keep, and again, it's a very, very big game. The levels, at least, have been entirely built, and it's clear, anyone can look on our task list and see that what remains to be done are little polished, devil-in-the-detail bugs.
23. There's 23 bugs in there. No, that's not so bad. Maybe I'm not doing it right. I have to ask Bert a question. Hey, is the bug where if you jump in the air and you palm bomb and then you cancel, that you don't punch when you're on the ground?
Right. You need to be on the left-tation wall.
Oh, okay. I think I know. Bert! Okay, you do have to come and tell me. Not good, because then you lose your punch. I think that's a bad bug. We gotta fix that.
Nothing whatsoever.
And you died at that?
Yeah, it took me back. It was 6 men.
The fact that, that the bugs are pretty minor for the most part means that we're almost done. Yeah, that's good news. Okay, so you lost all your lives on the way there. Man, you suck. Yeah, at this stage, the worst things are, people getting stuck here and there's some place that's really hard to get to.
I can go back to a picture where I've saved it.
You should do that, yes. Or we have this sound stuttering.
Do you hear Pop?
Agent 9, I'm here for the advanced training.
So we really want to try and catch that stuff.
I don't hear Pop.
There's no turning back.
Julie. You fought the demon, killed the demon.
No, I fought the demon and died.
That's a bad bug. Okay.
Alright, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well, what I was thinking is we could write a speculative fix for it, but
I hate to change it because all the boss fights are break.
we would want to check it with all of those. Yeah.
We try not to fix bugs unless they're really, really important, because every time you fix a bug, you enter the possibility of causing another bug. So we try not to destabilize code like that. Now that you pointed it out, now I know if they're really important, we fix them and then we check just that area a lot.
We can leave it on the list, write a fix for it, and then see if it's worth it.
Dialogue is very important to me, so I want to get that one right.
Yeah. Well,
now I leave it to you to decide. Okay. Let's see, what causes the bugs? Bugs are caused by small electric gremlins that live in the wiring of old buildings.
And there's no one who can stop him, except for you and me.
Oh my god! Let's make out!
So we got this modern building here.
There's a glitch, and that's a pretty big glitch.
The year is 1993, and the popularity of adventure games is fading.
We may not live to see yesterday.
This is all your fault, Bernard.
Day of the Tentacle actually did better than the Monkey Island games, but they wanted more, and they were just trying to keep adventure games alive in a way, because you can see the market growing and adventure games kind of staying the same size.
So LucasArts calls their developers to revitalize the ailing genre.
They really encouraged us to try new things with the adventure games, and that's where Full Throttle came from. The theory I had at the beginning of that was, our characters so far have been funny, but the joke is mostly on them. It's like characters who are the butt of all the jokes, and you're kind of laughing at yourself when you play it, kind of. And I thought maybe people who were playing adventure games would want to be a character who was actually not a goofball, but cooler than them, and bigger than them, and tougher than them. Could ride a big, huge motorcycle and lead this gang of bikers.
Now there goes some boys I can write with.
The idea of making a character who was heroic.
Yeah, and you're in my way. Come on, kitty! Let's get down!
Making cool and tough and something you'd aspire to be. But also stripping down the interface, which is something I was really into. Like, I didn't see any reason why you had to click, up and down on the screen and do these verbs and drag them onto, why not just have this cool little tattoo that pops up wherever you are? Not as many inventory items.
I'm not putting my lips on that.
Just make it a much more streamlined interface and gameplay experience.
With Full Throttle, Schafer forges ahead into new territory.
The story of Full Throttle is a little more dark, and some violence happens in it. There's betrayal and all these darker elements to it. It's almost like a little noir story.
You know what might look better on your nose? What? The bar.
I think it was right. That kind of paid off in that game.
Someone did say something about killing you and making it look like an accident. They didn't do too good of a job there.
It was the biggest hit we'd had at that point with the adventure games. It was a huge hit, and I was really happy with that.
After shipping Full Throttle, Schafer is tempted to venture into new territory himself, but the idea doesn't last long.
For a while after Throttle, I was really into Warcraft, and I was going to do a Warcraft game. I remember I was like, I had this idea for one that I wanted to do, and then after working on that for a while, I realized, like, wait, what am I talking about? I make adventure games.
Schafer's next game will be his final project with LucasArts, and he's going to go out with a bang. As Psychonauts gets closer to completion, the pressure to get the game out the door mounts, but the team believes in their product. And to them, every hard hour is worth it.
This is some of the concept art of Scott Campbell, who drew this. I did all the characters. Here's drawings of all the camp kids in camp. Here's an early drawing of Raz. So here's some other Razes right here. This is what he used to look like. He was this kid with a stocking cap. And we modeled him and put him in the game. He's like kind of baggy pants and baggy jacket and stuff like that. And like he was totally not very limber. And everyone thought he was a girl too.
Because they thought his long stocking cap was a ponytail. It just didn't test well.
We had to go back and redesign it.
It sounded terrible when we first heard about it, because we're like, you want to remodel the main character of the game after we've done all this animation for it. But it's definitely the best thing to do.
This right here is Raz's love interest. Lily is her name. She's cute. She's wearing like a little plaid sweater. And she's got little hand stockings, kind of like those kids love in Japan. And she's one of the girls at camp. She doesn't really care about stuff.
Hey, Brainiacs, settle down.
Why? You worried I'm gonna hurt your boyfriend?
No.
She's kind of over it, but she's really amazing psychic.
Duh.
My name is Stephen Peck, and I'm the lead game tester of Psychonauts. Just because Psychonauts have become a huge part of my life, I decided to get a couple of the characters tattooed on my leg.
No! It's not safe!
And it's super exciting for me because I've never seen something I've drawn on somebody's body before.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that is so great. No farther, no farther.
I kind of specialize in a lot of the camera controlling. A lot of times we kind of have to adjust the camera to fit the moment.
What?
For instance, if you're in a boss fight with a big boss monster.
The full destructive force of an angry critic.
You kind of want a lower camera to make them look bigger.
Your fighting is weak, uninspired, and flat as a pancake.
Make a tighter FOV to make him look more menacing.
Enough horseplay, Rasputin. Destroy him.
Ah, they got that in. Nice.
Now that we're near the end, we're running short on sleep, but we're almost there. We're all really excited to have it almost out.
Despite Full Throttle success, adventure games continue to decline. Once again, Tim Schafer and his team at LucasArts band together in another bid to turn the tide. To guarantee that this new game will be truly unique, Schafer looks south of the border.
I was often really inspired by art, and I had had this book of Day of the Dead paper mache sculpture, and I just love the characters in it because they're these little paper mache skeletons, and they had little paper mache houses or cardboard houses that they lived in. I just love the idea of seeing a whole town of these people jumping and running around and coming to life.
LucasArts also wants this new game to take advantage of the latest advances in PC technology.
We'd always done 2D games, and 3D was a new hot thing. Everybody, you were lame if you were still doing 2D, but I didn't like the way it looked. It always looked like the characters were these cardboard boxes that had been duct taped together. When I looked at these calaveras, these little paper mache skeletons, that's like exactly what the texture map technology is we have these days. I was like, this is where there's an intersection of technology and art, where it's an art style, not a limitation.
After putting 2 and 2 together, Tim Schafer comes up with Grim Fandango.
The story for Grim Fandango was inspired a lot by Big Sleep. Also movies like Glengarry Glen Ross.
I am ready to take you now. Take me? Take me where?
It was his film noir story.
Need to be nervous. Nervous? Just your appearance. It's a little intimidating. Intimidating? Me?
There were sad parts in Grim Fandango that were probably more emotional than most games. Because, again, it's about a character you care about.
They don't qualify for anything good, so I can't sell anything good. Can't work off my time, and I'm stuck. Stuck selling walking sticks to a bunch of burros for eternity.
Tim will end up working on Grim Fandango longer than any other game he's done before.
It's funny. Secret of Monkey Island took 9 months to make. Secret of Monkey Island 2 took a year. Day of the Tentacle took a year and then a half to do the voice stuff. Full Throttle took a whole year, which we thought was pretty grueling. And then Grim Fandango took 3 years.
When the game finally ships in 1998, the effort put into it shows.
I played Grim Fandango. My kids actually really loved it too. They called it the Skeleton game. It was one of those games that, like, where does he come up with this stuff? And it was so well written and so well, acted.
Ah, pump another one. Lousy, bony fingers.
There was a really obvious, passionate dedication to quality. The musicians, just an amazing soundtrack, all different music type, all these live instruments, a whole new step of animation that we never tried before. I like to think that people just responded to someone caring that much about a game.
I was a huge Grim Fandango fan. That's definitely on my top 10 list of all time.
We won Game of the Year on GameSpot, and it got really good reviews, and it really stood out for people as a unique title. And it sold pretty well. In some ways, it was right at the end of adventure games, and it came out. People thought it was really good, and they thought it didn't sell very well, so that became this kind of like, well, if it was that good, it didn't sell well, then adventure games must be dead.
Yeah, well, you don't have a tongue, but that doesn't seem to shut you up now, does it?
It made its financial plan, and I got a royalty check from it. It made money, so it's kind of too bad that people remember it that way.
Despite Grim Fandango's success, adventure games continue to wane in popularity.
Ah, cheer up, buddy. Another day, another death. Am I right?
Meanwhile, Tim Schafer will soon make a career-changing decision that will take him on the roller coaster ride of a lifetime. There's just 1 day left to make sure that Psychonauts is ready to ship. The journey's been hard, and it shows.
No, someone keeps unplugging them. It's probably Tim Schafer. I'm sure it's Tim Schafer.
The team all looks like they're going to kill me all the time, and it's early.
I keep trying to watch TV, and he keeps connecting the Xbox. The bastard. I know.
You're fixing all the bugs and fixing last-minute touch-up stuff.
It's been hard. My boyfriend proposed to me on a build night, and then he had to bring me back to work.
If you just sit here and stare at the desk for a long time, you can really get migraines and your eyes start to kind of fade. It's just really unhealthy sitting in one place.
This is one of the worst crunches I've ever seen, definitely. Sort of appalling in how intense it is, but the people, they seem to keep their spirits up, joking about it at 4 in the morning.
It's time to make the beer and ice cream run.
You're like a bunch of angels.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, this crunch.
At the turn of the century, Tim Schafer makes a drastic change.
After Grim, I kind of went home for a couple months. Then I came back into work at LucasArts, kind of groggy, and then it started to feel at that point like it would be a good time to maybe try it on our own. So some of the team kind of talked about it, and we wanted to be in control of our own destinies, and then one day we just left.
When he left LucasArts, it was definitely like, whoa, what's going on? You know, everybody wants to start their own company eventually.
So we did.
After more than 8 years at LucasArts, Schafer finally leaves for greener pastures.
It was just kind of a leap of faith.
It started out with a simple phrase.
You can't really go anywhere and not find someone that doesn't know what Star Wars is.
I knew for sure that, oh my God, this is going to be like the biggest hit ever.
And gave birth to a gaming dynasty.
Star Wars, the original arcade game, at the time, it was like the coolest thing ever.
Gamers are looking for something in their Star Wars game that kind of makes them feel the way they do when they see a Star Wars film.
That tumbled down.
The company lost its way. We were making way too many Star Wars games that, at the end of the day, sucked.
And was rebuilt.
I think the Star Wars brand is definitely stronger today than any point in history.
Icons presents the history of Star Wars games. In the year 1977, the Voyager space probe is launched. The Apple II personal computer goes on sale for the first time. And a young filmmaker named George Lucas introduces America to a galaxy far, far away.
I grew up with Star Wars, and in 1977, I was a 5-year-old. Got to see it for the first time with my dad at a drive-in movie theater.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
And we loved the movie so much, and I was just so amazed by it.
I remember waiting in line to see all the movies, you know, seeing Darth Vader. You just have those memories, just don't forget.
This cold chill just went over me because I realized it was a great movie. I just was thrilled. Even at that point, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be like the biggest hit ever.
Star Wars: A New Hope does more than redefine movie making. It creates an entire generation of fans and becomes a worldwide phenomenon.
It's such a part of the world culture. You can't really go anywhere and not find someone that doesn't know what Star Wars is.
In 1980, The Empire Strikes Back stuns audiences all over again. Star Wars merchandising is all the rage. 2 years later, Parker Brothers brings Star Wars to the virtual world with The Empire Strikes Back for the Atari 2600 and starts the Star Wars gaming franchise.
You flew around a snowspeeder, which essentially was about 8 pixels arranged to look like a snowspeeder flying across this snowy landscape and shooting at AT-ATs. It was very simplistic for the time, but it was the most amazing looking thing that was on that machine when it came out.
Come on!
When Return of the Jedi comes out in 1983, Atari gives gamers a chance to fly an X-Wing fighter in Star Wars: The Arcade Game.
The great thing about the original arcade game was you wanted to be Luke Skywalker. And you wanted to be the pilot of an X-Wing fighter, shooting down TIE fighters and blowing up the Death Star. And that game actually let you do it.
Yahoo!
And it's vector graphics, but at the time, it was like the coolest thing ever.
That same year, George Lucas is given a unique offer.
George had now achieved enormous prominence. Atari came to him and they said, we've got a lot of money we want to throw your way because we think you're very creative and you'll create something wonderful. And George, instead of just kind of doing a project for Atari, said, oh, here's the seed money to start an entire division.
Lucasfilm Games is formed, but this new development house doesn't make Star Wars games. Instead, it focuses on original titles such as Ball Blazer. A few Star Wars games are released by other companies after the gaming crash in the mid-'80s. But Lucasfilm Games won't make a Star Wars title of their own until 1991, 6 years after Nintendo's NES kickstarts the industry.
The 8-bit Nintendo was pretty popular at the time, and we figured, well, we should do a Star Wars game. And so we finally got access to Star Wars, and the first game we did was very much a Mario-esque, cute little platformer. Then we rolled on to The Empire Strikes Back on the 8-bit game. And when we were halfway through The Return of the Jedi, Nintendo unveiled their Super Nintendo system. So we stopped what we were doing immediately and said, wow, look at all these colors, look at all this stuff we can do. And we started working on the Super Star Wars game. And then Super Empire Strikes Back was the next game we did. We spent a lot more attention on the lightsaber stuff. Return of the Jedi. We had to do Bikini Princess Leia because, you know, she was in the slave girl outfit and she got a beat-up Jabba the Hutt, which was pretty fun.
The Super Star Wars lineup is a hit. And in 1992, Lucasfilm Games changes their name to LucasArts. Next, the empire that Lucas built will focus its talents on the PC and bring about an unforgettable era of Star Wars games.
X, prepare the attack.
Move! It's 10 years after Return of the Jedi, and the Star Wars phenomenon is as strong as ever. Thanks in part to a growing collection of Star Wars video games.
These Star Wars miniatures. I like video games better. Video games does everything for you.
LucasArts takes the fever to a new high when they begin releasing Star Wars games for the PC.
After we finished the Super Nintendo games, we were waiting for the next generation of consoles. Meanwhile, Larry Holland was working on World War II flight simulators for LucasArts. We wanted to do a Star Wars game. A couple of us who were working on the Super Nintendo games said, well, I want to do that too.
People started looking at the flight simulator engine and thinking, we could really use this in the Star Wars environment.
One of the sort of quintessential elements of the Star Wars movies was their spacecraft battles. When they were working on those parts of the movie, we're actually looking at World War II gun camera footage to recreate those experiences.
And at that time, flight simulators were very stiff and flying slowly and shooting little bullets, and we just wanted that crazy, roaring Star Wars dogfight experience. Laser bolts flying every which way, and barrel rolls, and all that kind of stuff.
Target destroyed.
When X-Wing was released, the fan and the critic reaction really exceeded our expectations. It really just sort of took off like, you know, an X-Wing into hyperspace.
Fantastic experience. Flight sim light, everything that's fun about flight simulators, but without you having to really learn the mechanics. Of course, it's in space. You didn't have to worry about stalling or any of the kind of the complex aerodynamics of a flight simulation, and you're in the Star Wars universe.
Base 1, we're starting our attack run.
And then we followed that up with Rebel Assault, which was our second Star Wars game and our first PC CD-ROM game. They were very different games. One was an action arcade game, one was a flight simulator game. They put us on the map with PC games that were innovative. And then they established Star Wars in the gaming space that had never been established before.
LucasArts launches a sequel to X-Wing 1 year later.
Our capable forces, led by Darth Vader, are striking back.
The next step was we really wanted to turn the whole series on its head and design it from a totally different perspective.
We turned the story upside down and said, well, I want to fly for the Empire.
The sequel to X-Wing was not X-Wing 2, but it was TIE Fighter. That really helped to give a whole different feel and look.
The rebels are unprepared for our attack.
Particularly because the approach we took was not tongue-in-cheek, but was serious to make it believable that a player could and would want to see the other side of evil.
There was a whole new appeal attached to that, and now the rebels had become terrorists. They were no longer plucky freedom fighters, and you totally got suckered in by the Empire propaganda.
Soon, peace and order will be restored throughout the galaxy.
brilliant game, fantastic flight dynamics, so much fun.
TIE Fighter is an even bigger hit than X-Wing. Earning high praise from critics and gamers alike, LucasArts is on a winning streak, and Star Wars fans are as ravenous as ever.
I've been a tattooist for about 15 years. I've been collecting Star Wars tattoos for longer than that. I have implants to make my Tusken Raider eyes pop out.
When Dark Forces is released in 1995, they get a chance to step into a storyline that's outside of the films.
Dark Forces was the first-person shooter in the series.
Yeah, Dark Forces was huge. That was right at the same time Doom came out, Dark Forces came out and had, in my opinion, a better story and an equally good engine.
The player takes a role of a character named Kyle Katarn as he fights this new threat called the Dark Troopers.
What have you done with Jan? If any harm comes to her, I'll personally shove my blaster down your slimy throat.
It was the first time they just decided to, instead of rehashing an old battle, they just kind of put new characters in the same time period. So you're kind of like crossing paths with Luke and Boba Fett, and it was a brilliant idea.
The first Star Wars game that really immersed me in the world of Star Wars had to be Dark Forces. I remember in college sitting in a friend of mine's dorm room. He had his stereo hooked up to the computer and he jacked up the sound really loud. It was really the first time that I was like in that world running around the Death Star, and it was really an amazing experience.
Thanks to the X-Wing series and Dark Forces, Star Wars fans are able to relive some of their favorite moments from the films in ways never before imagined. LucasArts is riding high, but their overconfidence eventually becomes their undoing.
Knockout. You lose. I'd better be getting paid. You're not authorized in this area.
After the 1995 release of Dark Forces, the Star Wars franchise continues to fly high. Games like Rebel Assault 2.
You have failed me for the last time.
And Shadows of the Empire help keep the Star Wars universe in the public eye, and the phenomenon shows no signs of slowing down.
It's a 74 Chevelle, Malibu Classic. My wife said, what a piece of junk. And from that time on, she's been dubbed the Millennium Falcon. We get a few of this, but mostly thumbs up.
The top of this is actually modeled after the top of an X-Wing. This glue is incredibly strong. You can shake the car. Mostly I just get blank stares.
In 1997, Star Wars fans finally get a taste of what it's like to be a Jedi in Dark Forces 2, Jedi Knight.
Jedi Knight was a great LucasArts project because it was so high-tech for the time.
Finally pull out a lightsaber in Jedi Knight. People got to play a Jedi for the first time.
Stormtroopers. In the first game, he was just kind of a pistol-shooting bounty hunter. This time we're like, let's give him a lightsaber.
Use it well. Use it for good.
Everyone really wants to play with a lightsaber.
Jedi Knight is a massive success. Meanwhile, the X-Wing series continues with the release of X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter.
After the TIE Fighter game came out in 1994, it was the debut and arrival of multiplayer gaming.
Remember our mission goal.
X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter was kind of the first step for LucasArts in going to the online multiplayer arena.
So we took on this, the technical challenge and the design challenge of taking what to then was a single-player game and create a wholly focused multiplayer game that didn't have story, but allowed squadron mates to sort of prove who is best in actual combat.
It seems that LucasArts can do no wrong when it comes to Star Wars games, but that soon changes. As LucasArts begins to put the Star Wars name on more and more games, the quality of their titles begins to wane.
LucasArts has kind of a spotty history with Star Wars. You kind of feel like they've been trying to squeeze it dry a little too much.
Games like Force Commander, Masters of Terras Kasi, and Star Wars Rebellion are critical flops.
Perhaps there's been some mistake.
The license is being used for everything from Star Wars chess
Oh my. Oh, my head.
to Star Wars Monopoly. The games begin to rely more on the Star Wars name instead of the Star Wars experience.
It became very apparent that we were flooding the marketplace with mediocre games, and
our consumers couldn't absorb them, nor were they happy with the quality level. And we had completely walked away from the heydays of the early 90s with our PC heritage.
I think in many ways, Star Wars as a gaming franchise is kind of a victim of its own success.
You lose. I shall be triumphant.
Then it became almost like, let's find a genre, let's find a hit game, and how can we wrap a Star Wars wrapper around it? And this is how we ended up with the Star Wars real-time strategy games, the Star Wars turn-based strategy game, the Star Wars Yoda desktop adventures, which was just, I think, a particular low point in the insanity of the franchise.
But in 1999, Star Wars fans find a new hope in the arrival of Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace. LucasArts capitalizes on the prequel by releasing numerous games based on the film. Faithful fans and gamers alike are excited by this new era of Star Wars games, but they don't stay that way for long.
I think towards the end of the 90s, the company lost its way. We were making way too many games, particularly way too many Star Wars games, that at the end of the day sucked.
Mini-games, such as Obi-Wan, are huge letdowns, and the public begins to lose faith in LucasArts.
It's kind of sad.
But there are a few gems to be found in the clutter of lackluster Star Wars games.
Rogue Squadron. That was kind of our dream project. We always wanted to try free flight, 360-degree freedom of movement, where you can fly anywhere, an action game, which still is very, very easy and accessible to the player. And that actually was Rogue Squadron.
I copy.
The Episode I pod racing game. Nobody ever thought you could do a Star Wars racing game. That seems a little weird.
You got a really visceral sense of the speed, which was nice. I mean, you got to see kind of what it was like to be in these things that were going faster than you could imagine going in a car. This is faster than a car racing game. It was a lot of fun.
As the new millennium gets underway, LucasArts realizes that they need to rework their Star Wars lineup.
What we really need to do is put the Lucas back in LucasArts. The magic, the creativity, and the innovation. What we needed to do was go out with great games, but go out with fewer of them so that people can actually have the time and the money to enjoy them.
Will LucasArts be able to bring about a new golden age of Star Wars games? Or is the franchise beyond redemption? The arrival of next-generation systems opened the door for a new level of gaming, just as LucasArts sets out to repair their image. One of their first steps is the 2001 release of Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader from Factor 5 Studios.
All squadrons, follow me!
That wasn't really a deep, complex fight sim. Go down the street and pick up a controller and fly an X-Wing. And you play the Death Star attack mission. You actually felt like you were Luke going in on the attack line on the Death Star and blowing it up.
We're building the Death Star. All the fans show up, take some foam core, build a piece of the Death Star. It's going to be 60 feet long.
As Star Wars fans are wowed by the visuals and intense action of Rogue Leader, LucasArts releases two more hits, Jedi Academy and Jedi Outcast.
Jedi Outcast allowed you to play as a Jedi. It really felt like you had control of what you were doing with the lightsaber and the Force powers. I think it was the best Jedi experience at the time.
LucasArts is slowly but surely returning the Star Wars franchise to its former glory. And in 2003, they get a massive boost from BioWare with Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
The Knights of the Republic games were set about 4,000 years before the movie.
The dark side has wholly consumed me.
So it gave us huge opportunity to completely have an open canvas for new storytelling and new force powers, really exploit what role-playing is all about.
Knights of the Old Republic is probably the best piece of Star Wars content in any medium in the last 10 years, including the movies.
Won something like 45 Game of the Year awards.
Now, Star Wars fans have a whole new Star Wars era to explore, and they love it. In 2003, LucasArts launches Star Wars Galaxies, and for the first time ever, fans can live in a virtual Star Wars universe.
Star Wars Galaxies are our first foray into the massively multiplayer online game genre.
We decided to set it in the classic Star Wars time frame because that's where the hardcore Star Wars fans' passion lies. But the most exciting thing is that this is the first opportunity for Star Wars fans to really live out Star Wars existences on their own.
Despite the high level of anticipation Star Wars fans have for Galaxies, it's met with mixed reactions.
Clear!
Meanwhile, LucasArts continues to rebuild the Star Wars franchise with a collection of solid titles.
Star Wars Republic Commando is a very different kind of Star Wars experience where we're putting you into the member of the elite military of the Republic Army. So it's a military experience set in the Star Wars universe.
Star Wars Battlefront was a great project, a lot of work, but the game allowed the player to live all the great battles that you saw from all the movies. But so you're not necessarily the hero, but you actually get to run out there and feel like you're part of those great battles.
The Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith game is the ultimate Jedi action experience. We're letting gamers play as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker.
Come back to the light. It's too late.
With the most fluid, intense, and cinematically accurate Jedi lightsaber combat we've ever done in a game.
As the Star Wars prequels come to an end, LucasArts continues to reclaim their former glory. Not every game will be a hit, but the future looks bright.
Well, let me dispel a myth in that this is the last Star Wars movie, but I will tell you, the Star Wars brand is going to continue on as strong as it ever has been.
I think the Star Wars brand is definitely stronger today than at any point in history.
Going beyond the films and other areas of Star Wars is important, but there has to be something about the Star Wars game that kind of makes gamers feel the experience of seeing a Star Wars film.
The games are going to be more successful as the franchise continues.
There have been definitely hits and misses throughout time, but I'll be honest with you, it's less about the past, it's all about the future.
Hello, I'm Ralph Baer.
You may not know his name.
If you look into Encyclopedia Britannica, you'll find that Nolan Bushnell is the inventor of video games. So, Lovey?
You may not know what he did.
As he's thinking about this, what he comes up with is, hey, you know, I wonder if you could play a game.
Basically, that's the genesis of the video game industry.
I think what Ralph Baer did was brilliant.
But his impact on the world of gaming is immeasurable.
He invented video games, the patents in his name. You can't deny that.
This is the forgotten story of Ralph Baer.
Boom, I got you.
The story of Ralph Baer begins before personal computers, video game consoles, and the internet.
I was born in Germany in 1922 and lived there until 38.
He grew up Jewish in Germany, which wasn't a good thing to be there. They kicked him out of public school because he was Jewish. He had to go to a Jewish school.
But he was old enough to know boys who made it into the Hitler Youth and to know that things were not right.
My father was a representative for shoe factories in the town that I was born in Germany. In school, we played soccer, of course. Every European kid plays soccer. I did some swimming, that's about all.
His family escaped Germany, which was 3 months before Crystal Night, which was the night of broken glass, which symbolized the beginning of the Holocaust. So they got out just in time.
Well, actually, it was very benign. When you think of escaping Nazi Germany, you might get visions of clandestinely crossing a border. It was nothing like that. I got in a train, stayed for several days with distant relatives of my father's. My mother and my sister came the day afterwards. And 2 or 3 days later, we got a steamship and sailed across the ocean.
He came to America and got involved in self-schooling He's a very smart man. He was largely self-educated.
We arrived in New York and went to work in a factory, making $12 a week for 10 hours a day, half a day Saturdays, which I spent $1.25 for a correspondence course. Became a radio technician, began to do all the service work for 3 radio stores in New York City, fixing and repairing and installing antennas of early television sets, early FM sets. And in 1943, Uncle Sam knocked on my door and I got drafted. And within months, I was in England. By that time, I'd been trained as an interrogator of prisoners of war, and I was part of an MIT military intelligence team that went over to Europe in a convoy zigzagging across the Atlantic. Next thing I know is I'm doing the syllabus for teaching GIs to recognize German weapons, handle German weapons, recognize German uniforms, heavy weapons. I had a whole museum full of hardware.
He was on duty in England. It was pouring rain outside, and he wound up in pneumonia. He wound up in the hospital. And the day he wound up in the hospital, the rest of his troop was shipped to Normandy.
After the war, Baer attends classes at the American Technical Institute of Television.
Ralph completed a program in Chicago, a trade school, and he was one of the first people to have a degree in television engineering. Back then, it wasn't a degree, nobody got it, and he was the first.
With his new degree in hand, he steps into the budding world of electronics.
In 1950, Ralph began working for L'Oreal, which was a TV manufacturer in New York City. One of the first projects that his manager had him make was build the best TV set you can make, better than anyone else can make one.
Another guy and I sat in the screen room for a year and built a set from scratch, everything from the front end to the tail end. My job was building the radio frequency sections, the power supply, reflection circuitry, and all that good jazz.
And Ralph got this idea to employ some kind of game in the TV. He didn't know what kind of game, definitely not a video game, but something to make TV interactive.
I looked at what we were doing, and especially at how we were testing the set. To set up a set in those days, there was test equipment to set up sets so they would leave the factory properly adjusted. Those test equipment could produce vertical and horizontal bars, and these bars could move around. It was kind of fun to do it. I said, why don't we build something like that into a TV set? You make a game of it.
But his management, they didn't like the idea.
And I proposed that to the chief engineer, and he said, well, you're already 2 months behind schedule. Forget it. Build the goddamn set and get it over with.
Ralph Baer's idea for an interactive game built into a television doesn't take off. But little does he know that he is on the brink of making history.
Get me, come get me. I'm the Red Baron, and I'm going to get you.
15 years after working as an engineer for L'Oreal, Ralph Baer finds himself working as a manager at Sanders Electronics.
I'm in charge of a division that by this time grown to some 500 engineers. I don't have much time for anything except being a chaplain, and taking care of people problems. So I built a little skunk works in a room off to the side that no one knows anything about, so I can do a little private R&D work.
While he's on a business trip, Baer revisits an old idea.
I'm in New York, waiting for somebody to come in to join me.
You have Ralph Baer sitting in a bus stop thinking, what can you do on a television set besides watch television?
All of a sudden, he had what he likes to say, one of his eureka moments.
What he comes up with is, I wonder if you could put a local signal on that TV that would be a controllable signal.
And I made some notes on a spiral pad. I sat down the next morning, September 1st, 1966, and wrote a 4-page paper that lays it all out. Describes the concept of playing games on a home television set or with a monitor. Describes playing stuff that comes out of a box, like sports games, quiz games, or board games.
Baer quickly starts work on his new idea. By October 20th, 1966, he finishes the first prototype of his game box.
We built a piece of equipment that allowed us to move a spot around the screen.
They got a game working called what they called Fox and Hounds, which is just a chase game. One dot chased another dot. This was interactive TV. No one else did it before.
The object was to make something that would be fun, right? Well, chasing a spot around the screen was fun enough, but not for very long. So I had a gun. We converted that, and then we started shooting at the screen.
Then he spent the next few days talking to his management to convince them to go ahead with this idea.
So the next thing I knew was I was going to demonstrate to the whole board of directors, and the demo had to go off well.
This is a chase game? All right, let's play. Come get me.
The reaction of the board of directors was very enthusiastic.
It was some feat that he did it because Sanders is a military contractor. They don't deal with consumer products, but yet they gave him the go-ahead for this by giving him $2,000 in seed money.
Oops, you got me.
And basically, that's the genesis of the video game industry.
You got me. End of the game.
In 1967, Baer gets a helping hand.
Bill Harrison, at the time he worked for me, was probably in his late 20s. He was joined by a guy by the name of Bill Rush.
Bill Rush understood fun. He comes up with ways to make it a little more fun. So pretty soon, they have a little block that you can pass back and forth on the screen. The goal is to try and hit it with your paddles, to catch it. Well, what if instead of catching it, we bat it back and forth and have like a tennis game?
We built several more boxes that were progressively more efficient. By the time we got up to number 6, we had handball games. It's no longer a net, it's the wall. We had a volleyball game, which was a side view with a half-height net. We also had gun games again, but we made a big mistake. We didn't stop at 6. We had so many ideas what else to do. We went to number 7, which turned into a much larger unit, which everybody knows as the brown box because it was covered with brown wood grain adhesive paper.
The executives from Sanders got together, played it, everybody loved it. And then the next step was, what do we do with this?
What you're dealing with is somebody who's looking at an appliance that's in everybody's home. He's trying to think of something that will actually reach the common man.
There was real concern on my part that having spent the money, I wasn't going to go anywhere because it wasn't obvious what to do with it. What store? Where? Who's going to build it?
The first idea was to try to interact with cable. So they brought down Irvin Kahn, who was Mr. Cable at the time, from Teleprompter. Their idea was to deliver this game through cable.
And then I brought up one of the 2 guys who invented the teleprompter. And they were then the largest cable company in the country. Saw the demo, was quite impressed. Went back to New York and caused the president to come up 2 weeks later. And we got into a negotiation, our own technical plan, somebody else did a business plan. We spent quite a bit of time on all that. And then it all went down the chute because there was a money crunch at the time.
At the time, the cable TV industry is still new, and Teleprompter decides not to risk supporting the strange new device.
And I was back to square one, so I know what the hell was I going to do.
Ralph Baer has his game box ready to go. Unfortunately, no one seems to know what to do with it. But Baer isn't ready to give up yet. Ralph Baer has created the world's first home video game console, dubbed the Brown Box. Now, he must figure out how to sell it.
Ralph was interested in connecting his box up to a TV set, which 40 million people in the United States had televisions. You just connect with 10% of them, you have a hit product.
Then it occurred to me, it was like a flash out of the dark. There are TV manufacturers all over the country. They have production lines that can handle the kind of stuff that's inside of my game hardware. So it's a logical place to go to.
So they started calling different television manufacturers, Zenith, Sylvania.
Everybody was quite impressed, but they weren't impressed enough to move immediately, except for RCA, Jerry Martin, who was in charge of television production. And when we got done demonstrating, everybody still sat around the table looking semi-unfriendly, except for Jerry Martin. He said, "It's a go."
Then Bill Enders with RCA moved to Magnavox. First thing he did was tell people, hey, there's this product I saw, why don't we take a look at it?
In 1969, Magnavox licenses the technology behind the Brown Box, and in 1971, they released the world's first home video game console, the Odyssey.
If you looked inside, you'd find very few differences in the Brown Box.
The Odyssey, which was the first home video game, set the standards of what came afterwards. It had 2 controllers, it had plug-in cards. Although the games themselves were built into the console, it was capable of playing 12 different games by changing the cartridges around. It had an add-on, you can get a light rifle.
But the launch of the Odyssey doesn't go as well as Baer hopes.
Magnavox released the Odyssey in May of 1972.
Distribution was kind of slow for a number of reasons.
Now, Ralph envisioned Odyssey to be a game in a box for $20. Magnavox didn't share his vision. They made him a much bigger, more elaborate, more expensive product. They saw a $100 product. $100 was a lot of money. That wasn't a toy. People didn't want to experiment with a $100 toy.
I can only imagine trying to explain to somebody this whole idea of that you play a game on a screen. It's just like, what?
They gave the impression that it could only hook up to Magnavox television sets. Most people who didn't have a Magnavox television set didn't even bother to look at it.
You had all these games with Odyssey, but they were a nightmare. The technology wasn't there yet. But then you had these overlays, these static overlays that you put on your television. So if you're playing hockey, you put a blue overlay on it. If you're playing football, you put a green overlay. It's a lot of bother. It just didn't catch on.
The future isn't looking good for the Odyssey, but Baer's console eventually gets an unexpected boost, thanks to a man named Nolan Bushnell.
Once Magnavox got into pre-production and in production, they were ready to show to the world and travel the country.
They're trying to show people what Odyssey is, and they're holding these kind of Magnavox internal trade shows. And they got to do one in Burlingame. Nolan Bushnell, who at the time was working for a small arcade game manufacturer, he hears about this, and he goes, and he even gets to play Odyssey.
I thought the games were pretty poor. I thought the technology was very interesting, that they were able to do what they could do for the price that they had at that point in time.
And he played the ping pong game, of course. In retrospect, he says he wasn't very impressed. And I can understand why he wasn't impressed.
What Nolan Bushnell does next will be the subject of many debates in the coming years.
And Al Cohen built a ping pong game, and they called it Pong. It was out there, and we knew of it. And video game business, yes, is often flying.
Yeah, it was a real cultural phenomenon. So that was like a regular, just part of the culture. Everybody saw this thing and wanted to try it out. Everybody had heard of it. It's like, oh, there's that Pong thing I've heard about.
I believe that we were able to help Odyssey a great deal by the success of the arcade game.
And now all of a sudden, people realize, well, they were hooked on Pong. By buying the Odyssey, they could have Pong at home.
The popularity of Pong helped spur sales of the Odyssey. And by 1975, 350,000 units are sold. Still, it's not enough for Magnavox. But thanks to Ralph Baer's detailed record keeping, Magnavox will eventually make millions off of the Odyssey. By 1974, Pong is a full-blown phenomenon, and Nolan Bushnell is reaping the benefits. Meanwhile, things aren't going so well for Ralph Baer and Magnavox, but Baer's meticulous record keeping ends up saving the day.
Atari was very successful with Pong. At the same time, Magnavox is really limping along with their Odyssey. And somebody says, hey, you know, that's kind of using our technology there. Why don't we sue them?
Around 1968, Ralph applied for a patent for his work.
Every stage of creation for Ralph Baer is meticulously recorded. Ralph doesn't do anything unless he records it, for lots of reasons, for legal purposes, also because he wants to see what he did. He is a quintessential engineer.
Ralph Baer got a patent on one of the most basic things. The patent really involves how you tell interactions on screen, how you tell that the bullet hit the spaceship and therefore something has to happen at that location, and telling those interactions what they managed to patent, which is the basis for most of these games.
Well, every video game that came out in the early 70s, it involved the business of interaction between manually controlled and machine-controlled spots.
Atari's Pong infringed on a lot of Ralph's patents. Sanders and Magnavox did what they had to do. They took Atari to court.
But at that time, we were making money hand over fist and saw that as a huge distraction. There was then an offer for settlement. I looked at how much money I was spending on attorneys versus how much I could settle it for, and I decided, let's settle it, get it out of the way, move on, next. So we got a paid-up royalty worldwide.
In effect, Atari was Magnavox's first licensee.
The real benefit, and it was a huge benefit, wasn't from selling the product. It was from licensing the technology.
Baer's patent is a legal juggernaut. Game companies are faced with two choices: fight Magnavox in court and lose, or pay to license the technology.
Magnavox's strategy was very clear. They wanted to get the big dog, us, to settle, and then they go around and they make money on everybody else.
Is this Exhibit 62 what's referred to as the brown box?
Yes, that's it. We won lawsuits. It wasn't even so much a question of who invented video games first. They simply infringed certain claims. If any part of that's infringed, they owe you something. We won every one of them.
Were you aware of any video games?
I object to that question. He has no reason to believe he's not aware of a lot of things.
Please do not testify before your witness.
I'm not testifying. I'm complaining about your approach.
As long as the patents held out, Magnavox just still continued making money through 1984, 1985, when Nintendo and Sega entered the market. All of them paid royalties to Magnavox and Sanders.
Magnavox finally has the profit they've been seeking. But as they win one legal battle after another, they find themselves losing the war in the stores.
In 1977, Atari came out with the Atari Video Computer System, the VCS, later known as the Atari 2600. Then, of course, Magnavox had to compete.
Odyssey, Video Game 1.
So they came out with the Odyssey 2, which had a keyboard built into it, but they just couldn't keep up with Atari. They later made plans around 1983 to come out with an Odyssey 3, but they finally scrapped that, and then they just got out of the business altogether.
Ralph Baer eventually leaves Magnavox. For the next few years, he will go on to create a collection of electronic games and toys. Baer never returns to the home console business that he helped birth, and as time goes by, his legacy begins to fade.
This is not what I had in mind.
Unfortunately, Ralph does not receive the recognition that he deserves. Nolan Bushnell did such an incredible job with the media that people think of him as the inventor of video games, and it's a shame.
I think what Ralph Baer did was brilliant. The technology he had at the time was really neat. I think that he was an engineer and not a very good game player. I think that was the problem.
If you look into Encyclopedia Britannica, you'll find that Nolan Bushnell is the inventor of video games. C'est la vie.
He should get the recognition that he deserves. He invented video games. The patent's in his name. You can't deny that.
And, you know, he's not even looking for money. What Ralph Baer really would like people to say is, hey, thank you for inventing video games. He just wants credit for what he did, which is reasonable because he did a lot.
But Baer isn't completely forgotten. In 1979, he's named Inventor of the Year by the state of New York, and in 1980, he receives the same honor from New Hampshire. As the game industry continues to grow and thrive, its roots can still be traced back to the work of Ralph Baer.
Ralph's contributions to the world of video games is immense. Everything that was in the brown box is still around today. The controllers, the light guns, the interchangeable games. He doesn't consider himself a big deal. To him, he's Ralph Baer. He's an engineer. So what? I'm Ralph Baer. That's the type of person he is.
Video games are, hands down, the most important thing I did. Well, it's not the most important things I did. The most important things I did is have a nice family and creative kids, and nice grandkids who are up to their eyeballs into video games. So I've had a good run, no complaints.
Before it became a household name,
Back then, it was just a no-go. The Sony execs were like, we are not a toy company, and we are not going to get into this business.
Before it dominated the world of gaming,
Sega had managed to capture 52% of the market in both Europe and the United States.
It was only an underdog, thought up by a man with a vision.
Ken is, I guess you could call him a genius.
Here in the U.S., people were saying, can Sony deliver games? Could they really enter the hardware side?
I remember having dinner with a vice president of Sony Records, and he told me, the PlayStation's never going to work. Sony's going to lose on this.
Witness the birth, betrayal, and rebirth of the video game console that changed the world.
Sony revolutionized the industry. It's that simple.
This is the history of the PlayStation. World War II, a company named Sony helps the people of Japan rebuild from the ashes.
Sony is a classic post-World War II success story in Japan. They started making cassette recording machines. They created a small cassette player that played back and recorded stuff off the bat, and that was the beginning of Sony Electronics.
Innovative products such as the Walkman helped Sony become one of the most successful electronics companies in the world.
Well, whenever people talk about Sony, a lot of people think about the Walkman. The Walkman was definitely Sony's first consumer product that really exploded. It was the portability of music, and everyone walked around with headphones. They really revolutionized the idea of portable music listening.
As Sony gains more and more ground in the consumer electronics world, the video game industry grows by leaps and bounds. And by the early 1990s, the war for gamers' dollars is red hot.
Sega and Nintendo are really dueling in the West. Sega had managed to capture 52% of the market in both Europe and the United States. Sega was more innovative at the time. They were always willing to take more chances. Sega was coming out with 70, 80 games of its own per year. The strategy at Nintendo was, let's hold on for the next Miyamoto game.
Nintendo pays close attention when Sega unveils its latest technological advancement.
So Sega came out with the Sega CD. All of a sudden, games were going to be huge. They could be 600 megabytes of information.
To meet the Sega CD threat, Nintendo turns to Sony.
Nintendo wanted a partner, so they went to Sony, which of course was a huge, successful company. Sony may not have been a video game company per se, but the Super NES used a Sony stereo chip for its sound. Sony was certainly, in its own way, a player in the video game industry in a small way.
So it was a race. Nintendo knew that CD-ROM technology was the way to go.
The original concept was a peripheral CD drive for the Super Nintendo that would be sold by Nintendo, and a combined unit which would be called PlayStation, which was the console and the CD drive together, which would be sold by Sony.
Sony brought in an engineer named Ken Kutaragi.
Well, when you talk about the PlayStation, you just have to talk about Ken Kutaragi, who is considered the father of PlayStation. He came in to Sony in 1975. Right off the bat, he was considered to be kind of a brash engineer. He was very feisty and had a lot of ideas.
He struck me immediately as a very forceful character. He had a clarity of thought and insight, which I think was, I still think to this day is very rare. He clearly is a visionary.
Very dynamic, very energetic, full of ideas, and very creative. He's known to be a fantastic engineer and a brilliant person on the engineering and technical side, but that's just the half of it.
I met Ken Kutaragi once. It was not like you were looking at an executive who was buttoned up. We were looking at a guy who was in the trench, who was clearly an engineering mind and was resolving problems. He's an impressive mind, and he's achieved impressive things.
The idea of working on a video game console is nothing new to Kutaragi.
He was thinking about making a 3D game console a long, long time ago while people were tinkering away on 8-bit gaming. He approached Norio Oga, who was then president of Sony, and said that we should get into the video game industry. But back then, it was just a no-go. Oga and the Sony execs were like, we are not a toy company, and we are not going to get into this business. So that was that.
But now, things are different. Hand in hand, Ken Kutaragi and the people at Nintendo team up to bring Sega to its knees. But Sony is about to face a bitter betrayal that will change the course of gaming history. As Sega prepares its new CD-ROM expansion for the Genesis, Nintendo and Sony work on a CD-ROM system of their own. But Nintendo begins to have second thoughts.
The big reason why Nintendo kind of balked on the Sony technology idea was that they weren't going to have any rights to the CD technology. Sony was going to retain all the making of the CDs, they were going to manufacture it, distribute it, and that totally cut Nintendo out of the picture on definitely a large profit margin.
And that made Nintendo very, very nervous. So in the forefront, Nintendo's telling Sony everything's great. But behind the scenes, Nintendo went to Philips and said, why don't you start working on something for us?
Nintendo's insecurities lead to a dramatic climax in 1991.
CES comes around, and Ken Kutaragi and Sony come out, and they announce the Nintendo PlayStation, because they don't know anything's going on.
Nintendo made a sudden announcement and said, well, we're going to work with Philips on the CD technology. That didn't go very well with Sony execs, and Ken Kutaragi was definitely very bummed. He went into Norio Oga's office and said, we just got backstabbed, blindsided by Nintendo. We had an agreement and they totally betrayed us.
Kutaragi went back to his bosses and said, let's not leave it like this. We can make an actual game system. We won't stop with the CD-ROM, we'll build the whole system.
And Oga, who was totally dead set against it before, now feeling the betrayal from Nintendo and being the samurai corporate guy that he is, said, that's it. Pounded his fist on the desk, said two famous words, do it. And that was the beginning of the Sony PlayStation.
Now, more driven than ever, Ken Kutaragi and Sony set out to make a video game console unlike any other. At first, Sony plans to release a system that plays both CD-ROMs and Super Nintendo cartridges. In 1992, 200 units of this PlayStation are manufactured, but are quickly scrapped. Sony decides to wait for the next wave of consoles to enter the fray and intends to capitalize on CD-ROM technology.
There was a big change taking place in terms of media, game media like cartridges, CD-ROMs. This really changed the finances behind game development and game publishing.
In October 1993, Sony announces that it's working on a new 32-bit game console. The name of this new system is the PlayStation X, or PSX. The CPU for this console will be designed by Ken Kutaragi himself. On November 16th, the company officially forms Sony Computer Entertainment.
We formed Sony Computer Entertainment, Inc. as a company, as a joint venture between Sony Corp and Sony Music Japan.
This new department raises more than a few eyebrows.
When PlayStation was being mentioned here in the US, people were saying, can Sony deliver games? Could they really enter the hardware side?
To some people within Sony, PlayStation represented the future and was very exciting, but to other people it was definitely a threat and something that they didn't fully understand.
You had a lot of people that were pretty much skeptical about us getting into the business. Even before we came out, we were pretty much placed in the failure column because we were just newcomers.
I remember having dinner with a vice president of Sony Records, and he told me, the PlayStation's never gonna work. Sony's gonna lose on this.
The irony for all of us was that as much credibility as Sony had as a brand, we had zero credibility as far as the world of games was concerned.
Sony, I think, corporately was a little discouraged. How do we get into this new charted area?
Sony knows that the road ahead won't be easy, but Ken Kutaragi has an ace up his sleeve that will dazzle the entire game industry. As Sony Computer Entertainment goes full bore into the development of the PlayStation, it becomes clear that this will be a console unlike any other.
The biggest feature of PlayStation was going to be the real-time 3D graphics technology.
At the time, the PlayStation was a faster console than anything out in the market. It could push more polygons. It gave developers a larger toolbox to work with than any of the competing consoles. And of course, it used CD-ROMs.
After watching the failure of systems like the 3DO very closely, Sony realizes that processing power alone isn't enough to come out on top in the world of video games.
We looked at the business models of all of the companies that have been in the space or tried to get in the space, and we asked ourselves, could we do this better?
The biggest problem that we had was that the market in 1993 was dominated by Sega and Nintendo. They pretty much had it sewn up between them. So any new entrant into the market had to do something pretty dramatic and pretty special.
Sure, we had the system, sure, we had the hardware, but it doesn't mean anything unless you have games. Nintendo already had Miyamoto, and he was a genius. Sega, they already had their arcade games. But Sony, what do they have? They don't have a genius developer or arcade games they're making, so they had to find software somewhere.
We knew that in order to be successful, we had to capture the hearts and minds of the developers and the publishers equally.
So what they did was they went on a very aggressive campaign to all the developers to...
If Sony had not brought hardware to the video game industry, I think the industry would be a lot smaller than it is right now.
Enough to really differentiate this system and show that it was a 3D-based system, and it really blew everybody away.
But at first, a lot of developers were dead set against it, mainly because it was high technology, it was 3D, and a lot of game companies were still making 2D games, and they said that's going to be so expensive to make 3D games, no way we can afford it, and it's going to be very hard.
Fight one! Ready? Go!
One game that changed it and helped Sony, ironically, was Virtua Fighter.
Sega announced Virtua Fighter for the first time, and that completely opened up eyes of other publishers that showed that 3D graphics can be applied to other types of games.
All of a sudden, there was a leap. I couldn't keep up with enough of the companies that were coming to us, that were asking us, can we do this? Is it possible to do this? Everybody wanted to work on the system.
Sony does everything it can to round up third-party developers to support the PlayStation and is able to sign 250 in Japan alone.
The first task for me was managing the third-party departments to recruit and help support third parties like Namco. My target was to get as many publishers and many popular title franchises to become available on PlayStation.
Sony also spends $48 million to purchase Psygnosis, the European developer behind Lemmings, and changes its name to Sony Interactive Entertainment. In December of 1994, Sony releases the PlayStation, now without an X, in Japan.
The success in Japan was almost instantaneous. Another 3 months to get to the million mark in Japan. And I remember the then chairman of Nintendo saying that if we ever got to 1 million units, he would resign because he clearly knew nothing about the games business. It took him a few more years to actually get around to it, but I thought it was a great statement.
The next step is ensuring a successful launch in the US and Europe. To pull this off, Sony spares no expense. The Japanese giant spends a rumored $4 million for a booth at E3 in 1995. Sony also kicks off a huge marketing blitz to raise awareness for the PlayStation.
The marketing strategy was very clearly defined from the beginning that we needed to appeal to an older, more sophisticated audience. We also had a very smart bunch of people in our marketing department who recognized that everybody really wants to be 19. If you're 12, you want to be 19. If you're 25, you really want to be 19 again. And so what they did was they targeted 19 as the communication tone of voice.
Another thing that I think was really key to establishing that credibility for us was the idea that gamers wanted to work a bit harder at deciphering messages, teasing a date like 9/9/95, playing with Enos, which was essentially Sony spelled backwards.
Sony was saying games are a lifestyle, and we're going to promote and work it from a lifestyle perspective.
We very deliberately stayed away from making SONY, the Sony brand, a big part of the communications message. The initial tagline of "You are not ready" was the first big step that we took in saying, this is not your parents' Sony brand.
With this new mindset, Sony sets out to conquer the United States. After a nationwide marketing blitz unlike any other, Sony launches the PlayStation in the United States on September 9th, 1995.
The first day, September 9th, I felt really like, oh, we did it. But it was not really a huge amount of numbers in the first year. It's like only 800,000 units.
The initial launch of the PlayStation was a real happy day for me. It just was overwhelming. For a relatively unknown company, at least in the video game business, to get that kind of enthusiasm from day one.
The original PlayStation, I think, really touched a nerve. I think part of that was down to the product itself. It's a great hardware device, and they lined up some great software, and I'd like to think we did some nice marketing as well.
The controller of the PlayStation, it's unbelievable. It's just perfect.
The PlayStation picks up more and more sales thanks to powerful hardware and a collection of exclusive games and other hits.
We had Ridge Racer as a driving game.
Okay, the final lap. Hang in there.
So we had a driving game, and then I wanted a fighting game. So I went out and hunted for that. I found Toshinden. If you look at the sexiness and the appeal of what Toshinden was about as a fighting game, it was fabulous. It was a major, major hit. In 1996, we came out and launched Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot was a terrific launch title. Defined PlayStation as a platform.
And it was about a year or so after the launch of PlayStation. One of the executives at Squaresoft said he's going to make Final Fantasy on PlayStation. At that point, I felt that all the tides will change.
The PlayStation proves to be a juggernaut that plows through all competition.
The Saturn launched before PlayStation in 1995, which was the wrong time to launch. Also at a very expensive price point. I believe it launched at $399 versus $299. The PlayStation launched and did not have very good games.
But it was around Thanksgiving and going into the holiday of 1995 where we started getting reports that the retailers were just not going to have enough PlayStation units to last them through the holiday selling season. It really turned into a feeding frenzy.
The success of the PlayStation goes beyond even Sony's expectations.
Eventually, the success of the PS2 kind of like brought the PS1 era to a close. But you can still walk into Toys R Us and buy PS1 games.
The PlayStation has changed the world of gaming as we know it.
If Sony had not brought hardware to the video game industry, I think the industry would be a lot smaller than it is right now.
Before the original PlayStation came out, the media perception of the video game business was that it's basically a toy for kids. But we saw the PlayStation as not really a platform of entertainment for kids, but really an interactive entertainment platform for everybody.
Sony revolutionized the industry with the PlayStation. It's that simple. They started off as an underdog, and in 10 years have managed to own over half the market, and that's just incredible.
There are now over 35 million PlayStation 1 machines in the US and Canada combined, which puts us at an unbelievable household penetration rate compared to other game systems. And I think for many consumers, PlayStation equaled gaming.
Today, Sony remains number one. The PlayStation successor, the PlayStation 2, has shipped more than 90 million units worldwide and is still going strong. Sony is moving into the portable gaming market with the PSP, while the next generation PlayStation 3 is just around the corner.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to the father of the PlayStation, Ken Kutaragi.
And the man that started it all is still at the helm, ready for the next challenge.
And now, I have the final and the biggest announcement.
Ken Kutaragi is a man who has like years in advance plotted out in his head and has an amazing vision of where he wants video games to go.
Ken is really the father of the PlayStation.
He always believed PlayStation would be number one. You know what? I have to applaud him. He was right.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
His films have horrified audiences since 1968.
I slept with the light on after seeing Night of the Living Dead for the first time. It just paralyzed me with fear.
His name brings up visions of The Walking Dead.
Romero's picture was a stark, black and white, dead serious film with surprising amount of gore. You see people eat intestines they ripped out of living people.
It was the zombie movies that put Romero on the map, and it was the audiences that had a hunger for these zombie movies.
Remember when I saw Dawn of the Dead, I tried to sit through it eating food to see how long I would last. I didn't last 8 minutes.
And his impact on the face of horror is undeniable.
Every once in a while, somebody has to come along that pushes a genre forward to the next step, and that's who George Romero is.
This is the story of George A. Romero. While growing up on the East Coast, George Andrew Romero has many interests.
I was born and raised in New York City in the Bronx. I grew up on EC comic books. I loved genre stuff.
EC basically did one thing really good. It was always these revenge stories, or the consequences. You know, it was always you pay for what you do. Now, one of the things that EC was really famous for was just having just great gore. The art was phenomenal.
When I was old enough to go to movies by myself, they were rerunning the old famous monsters, Universal films, Frankenstein, Dracula, all that stuff. And so I got to see those big screen, which were very, very impressive. They're beautiful films, big screen.
Romero dreams of getting into filmmaking, but to him, this goal is beyond his reach.
I always loved movies, but I never thought it was anything that I could do. I thought you had to sort of be born royalty to get involved in it.
As the years go by, Romero pursues other interests.
Went to parochial schools in the Bronx, and then came to Pittsburgh to go to Carnegie Mellon University. And I did 3 years as a painting and design major.
After college, Romero manages to take his first small step into the world of filmmaking.
So after 5 years at CMU, without graduating, I just sort of took off and stayed in Pittsburgh. In those days, cities the size of Pittsburgh had film laboratories because the news was on film. This was before videotape. So I started to just hang out at one of these labs and met the guys that were gluing together newsreels. And my first job was bicycling newsreels around to the TV stations. And then finally, I got my hands on a camera and we set up a little company to shoot commercials. And our first job wasn't really a commercial job. It was for Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Rather than leaving for Los Angeles to pursue his film career, Romero stays in Pittsburgh.
I live here. It's nothing necessarily about Pittsburgh. I mean, I stuck around. I found a town with a work ethic that has a lot of diverse history, and yet that was sort of ragged around the edges.
There's a certain despair that Pittsburgh has for me. It definitely is kind of a ghost town in a lot of ways, in that it had this big, giant industry, the steel industry that was there, and that's what everybody's job was, but they lost their industry. And you sort of get that sense of a city trying to, like, sort of wandering around, trying to find, zombies, trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing.
That idea of sort of this little bit of decay around the edges of what was an American dream has always been pretty interesting to me.
After he has a few projects behind him, Romero and his partners decide to take their company to the next level.
We had a commercial production company. It was called The Latent Image. And some of us wanted to make a feature film and thought that we could do it. We were audacious enough to think that we could do something ourselves and raise enough local money to just get it together and try to do a little movie.
I was just really impressed with him that he just, he didn't wait for the system to, to let him make a movie. He didn't even bother to move out to L.A.
I had written a short story, which basically I ripped off from Richard Matheson's novel, I Am Legend, which is about the last man on Earth and vampires have taken over the planet. So I couldn't use vampires because Richard did. And I wanted to sort of start it at the beginning on the very first night that it happened. So when we decided to try to make a little horror film, we said, well, let's convert that into a screenplay. So I started to write it. 10 of us kicked in $600 a piece, and we actually started to go to work.
He went out and got the financing. He made that with friends, and they filmed it. And they did it on their own.
As Romero begins his first feature, he has no idea that he's about to change the face of horror.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
After establishing Image 10 Productions in the late 1960s, George A. Romero and his cohorts set off to produce their first feature film. The original title is Night of the Flesh Eaters, but it's later changed to Night of the Living Dead.
We rented the farmhouse, and we had cameras and lights and all that stuff in the company, so it was easy for us to just go out and shoot whenever we wanted to. It was a slow process, and, you know, we were shooting jobs in between. And, you know, we were just lucky that nobody got hurt. All the actors lived through that whole extended period of time. And we finished it here at one of these labs in Pittsburgh. Literally finished it, and then threw it in the trunk of the car and drove it to New York to see if anyone wanted to show it. Well, it first went out and it played neighborhood theaters, drive-in movies for 4 or 5 weeks.
Night of the Living Dead makes a big impression on those who see it.
This isn't like Dracula and the Wolfman and people with phony European accents and cheap monster masks. This was the real thing. Horror had grown up.
I slept with the light on after seeing Night of the Living Dead for the first time. It just paralyzed me with fear. Everybody that sees it, they remember the first time they saw the original Night of the Living Dead.
He grabbed me!
I think you should just calm down. It seemed real. I think more than anything, it seemed like it was really happening to these people. It had such a documentary feel to it.
If you had a gun, shoot him in the head. That's a sure way to kill him. If you don't, get yourself a club or a torch. Beat him or burn him.
First time I saw one of George Romero's movies, it was, of course, Night of the Living Dead, like everybody else. And I saw it at a drive-in here in Los Angeles. It was so terrifying that my friend and I, in our car, could hear children inside other closed cars all around us screaming and begging to be taken home.
It got really attacked by people like Roger Ebert, who basically said, how far will people go to make a buck?
Roger Ebert in Reader's Digest just castigated the thing. How dare anyone make something horrific? This is, you know, a new low in Hollywood horror films. They used to be so good, and now they're so awful. And I thought, I gotta see this.
People use Night of the Living Dead as a reason for needing an MPAA or some sort of a ratings board.
Romero's picture was a stark, black and white, dead serious film with a surprising amount of gore. I mean, you see a little girl stab her mother to death with a trowel. You see people eat intestines they ripped out of living people. It was like nothing else anybody had ever seen. It was just a sudden stop and a sharp right turn in another direction for horror movies.
The blood and the guts really has an impact on people. It's absolutely shocking to see some of this stuff. They're eating raw meat, pig intestines. I really think that Night of the Living Dead is a milestone from the standpoint of we've never seen blood and guts in a movie ever like that before.
Many people also pick up on a deeper meaning behind the horror and gore.
The thing that really separates Night of the Living Dead from other horror films of the period is, you know, the social subtext, the civil rights issues, the Vietnam War was fresh in people's minds. So the film had more of a weight to it. Even though the filmmakers didn't set out to make a message monster movie, a lot of this psychological baggage was kind of put on the film after it came out.
Did you hear me when I told you they turned over our car?
There's no racism on the surface between any of the characters. No one uses the N-word. No one says it, but you can feel the tension.
You get the hell down in the cellar. You can be the boss down there. I'm boss up here.
You bastards.
So there's certainly a respect, and the respect actually comes from the filmmaker himself, George Romero.
You know, it was that sign of the times, and we knew that we had injected some of that into the film, but it was more about the war and rioting in the streets. And the fact that we had an African-American in the lead was basically accident. Dwayne was the best actor from among our friends.
They dragged you out there and feed you those things. Watch the torch.
Because of the times, I think, and because of, a lot of those factors, many of which were accidental, I think the film got a lot more attention than it would have otherwise.
The black guy who's the lead, Dwayne Jones, you definitely observe a power struggle. But once everybody gets in the house and they're enclosed in the space, they're surrounded by the zombies, it becomes a power struggle. That's where things begin to go wrong. When you see these groups of the police and these volunteers, effectively these vigilantes, and you really get that sort of scary feeling that if this were a different movie, Dwayne Jones would have been lynched and not shot in the head. It's right there, just beneath the surface, making comments about racism in the South.
Good shot. Okay, he's dead. Let's go get him. That's another one for the fire.
Night of the Living Dead is a minor financial success, but things are just getting started.
Actually, we turned some money, somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000, and we thought it's over. But hey, we made a few bucks, and this is an easy business. So we were wrong on all counts there.
Light these torches over here.
In the years following the 1968 release of Night of the Living Dead, Romero's film manages to make its way into Europe, where it gets a second wind.
It sort of fell off the radar, and it was rediscovered in France. Cahiers du Cinema wrote a huge piece about it, and then all of a sudden critics over here like Rex Reed and several other writers picked up on it and started to talk about it. And then it went into re-release again. Then it started to play midnights. People started to use it as a midnight movie. And that's what got most of its attention.
But this renewed success reveals a big oversight.
In the meantime, we found out, along with the rest of the world, that we didn't have a copyright on the film. We had put the little copyright bug on the actual title card, and that's where we have a copyright, which was wrong. We were just some guys in Pittsburgh making a movie. We didn't know.
That's the disheartening thing about George, and he was an amazing, accomplished filmmaker, but I think maybe not the best businessman.
So, no copyright on the movie. And that's how easy it was to just lose it. None of us noticed, nobody knew. One of those things that just slipped through the cracks. But that's the way it goes, the one that got away. And that movie has played somewhere every night since 1968. So,
Over the next few years, Romero goes on to direct an eclectic collection of movies, such as Martin and The Crazies.
Camera. Roll it. Sound. Roll it.
But it's his return to the zombie film that will elevate Romero's status to unimagined levels.
The problem with a lot of the, let's say, the non-zombie related Romero movies, they never got big releases. It was the zombie movies that put Romero on the map, and it was the audiences that had a hunger for these zombie movies.
I got a call from Dario Argento, the Italian director, who was just a big fan of Night of the Living Dead. And he said, would you ever consider doing another one? And I said, I have an idea that might work. And he actually invited me to Rome and put me up in an apartment and said, you write. And I was there for about a month, and I wrote the script. That's how it happened.
George Romero would not have gotten Dawn of the Dead made if not for Dario Argento, who helped secure the financing by pre-selling the international rights. Yes, it sounds complicated, but basically, Dario Argento, of course, is an amazing master horror filmmaker in his own right. The teaming up of them just got fans so excited.
The name of this new zombie movie is Dawn of the Dead. Romero acquires a $1.5 million budget for his new film and shoots it in only 4 months. It hits theaters across the world in 1978 and goes on to earn more than $40 million.
I think Dawn of the Dead is overall his best picture. A lot of people have made a great deal out of the satire in it, the consumerism. There's some of that, but nobody makes a movie like that to send a message. Romero is making Dawn of the Dead, and he thought, hey, let's comment on American consumerism while we're at it. Therefore, the movie isn't driven by the satirical elements, but they are certainly in there.
You have these people who've locked themselves in a mall, and they have everything they could possibly desire. The finest food, they've got cars, they've got money, clothes, everything you could possibly want, and they're not happy. There's something missing in their lives. And that's brilliant.
And thanks to a man named Tom Savini, Dawn of the Dead is gorier than ever.
One of the things about Romero's picture is that he has not wanted to, but felt it incumbent upon himself to make each of the Dead pictures a little gorier than the previous one, because that's what the kids went for. And certainly Dawn of the Dead was extremely gory.
George Romero had crossed another line.
In awe of the sheer audacity of it. And so much of that is George's sensibilities, so much of that is Tom Savini's brilliant makeup effects.
The movie starts playing, and right at the scene with the husband and wife hitting each other and him taking the bite, like, the whole place exploded, like, literally, with people throwing up in the aisles, leaving, running, just getting out of there. It was total chaos.
Dawn of the Dead is one of the most profitable independent films in history. After its success, Romero has given bigger budgets for bigger movies, including Creepshow with Stephen King in 1982. But it doesn't take long for Romero to make another return to the world of zombies. Seven years after finishing Dawn of the Dead, George Romero gets to work on a third zombie film titled Day of the Dead. His original intentions are for a movie of epic proportions, but budget restrictions force him to compromise his vision.
You never could have made that at the time it was shot. I mean, digital effects were not a reality. Armies of zombies fighting each other and countries defending each other with these armies of zombies, that could never have been filmed, not at the budget that Romero had.
My challenge was to try to scale it down and see if I could just do it at 3 minutes.
It's not my favorite of the trilogy at all. You know, had its moments that I really liked. I mean, I love Bob. But a lot of the performances and stuff, it just seemed like, kind of seemed lost.
Appointments in Day of the Dead was the fact that George's original script was absolutely brilliant.
Most fans will tell you that Day of the Dead was a disappointment, but none of those fans blame George. They all blame the fact that really his budget was anemic.
Day of the Dead is panned by critics and is a disappointment to fans. The film also performs poorly at the box office. Romero goes on to direct 3 more movies, then disappears from the Hollywood scene for 8 years.
I think the reason that George suffered a gap in his career is just not the best business person. I also think that he had trouble dealing with Hollywood. He's made all of his films independently, got independent financing, and he got to make things his way. Hollywood is just incredibly complex, horrible place to be creative and make a film, at least in the way that George likes to make a movie.
But the cult following for Romero's zombie series keeps his name in the public eye.
I have an original script from the movie. When I heard there was people coming, I bring everything with me just in case.
It's just amazing that there's that kind of passion for his movies.
This should be my scene coming up right about here.
Dawn of the Dead is one of those movies that when you find somebody else who likes it, it's like you're part of a secret club.
It's so funny how this whole cult of George Romero just sprung up. You've got fans that actually go to the mall where Dawn of the Dead was filmed, the Monroeville Mall.
They wanted to be there at the shrine, as it were.
So people could go there and they'd take pictures of each other shuffling around like zombies.
I have people come in here every year, all the time, looking, oh, is this the place? It was just neat.
Things look up for Romero when zombie movies see a resurgence.
It seemed like that happened really fast. All these zombie movies are being made. Now there's been 28 Days Later, Dawn of the Dead, the remake.
We never got to be zombies in our own films. I was too busy directing, and he didn't become a zombie in it. So it was great to be zombies in somebody else's film.
It's got to be Romero.
Renewed interest in zombie films leads to a green light for Romero's 4th zombie movie. In 2005, Universal Pictures releases Land of the Dead.
For Land of the Dead, I tried to put some 9/11 and post-9/11 references in there without clobbering anybody over the head.
His stories are so layered. He's not just making a horror movie just to spill a little bit of fake blood or to get a couple people's popcorn to fly up in the air when they jump. I mean, he really has socially relevant things that he wants to talk about. In the opening of the movie, as the Dead Reckoning is going through Uniontown and they start machine gunning zombies, one of the zombies gets shot and his head separates. So we did a radio-controlled head. See the way the jaw has four-way movement, so not only can it open and close, but it can move side to side.
Romero fans are happy to see their favorite director back in the hot seat, doing what he does best.
Well, I wouldn't call it a comeback. I mean, he never went away. George's got a lot of good movies left in him.
George Romero continues to shoot in Pittsburgh because he knows where his roots are.
It was wonderful to have a premiere here in Pittsburgh because there are so many people here that had so much to do with my early work.
He's one of the first regional movie makers who stayed in his own town, made his own movies, and made his own mark there.
George Romero is sort of the father figure to me of the entire independent film movement.
Today, Night of the Living Dead can be found in the National Film Registry of the Library of Congress. And the cult following of George A. Romero is alive and well, eagerly awaiting his next offering.
It's been fabulous. I mean, most of us are still working in the industry. I've had a fabulous career, mainly because of that film. So there's nothing to really, moan about. I'm just learning all the way across the board. I feel like I'm still learning how to do it.
Romero created this whole subgenre, the modern zombie film.
Romero changed the face of horror film.
Just every once in a while, somebody has to come along that pushes a genre forward to the next step. He's the guy who, in the late 60s, pushed horror out of the 50s, and that's who George Romero is. He gave us the modern horror movie.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
It's 80 times more powerful than its predecessor.
Wanted to get a lot more CPU and graphics horsepower.
It's designed to take gaming to the next level.
We've got Dolby 5.1, we've got high def, everything's ready to go for you.
We weren't driving toward a spec, we weren't driving toward a marketing campaign. We were driving for how do we make real games as good as they possibly can be.
And it's poised to become the new king of interactive entertainment.
We're going after people. People on Earth is our market. Our strategy is to provide a great platform for game creators to do their best work. It's that simple.
It's the Xbox 360, and this is its story. In 2001, the console wars are raging. The software giant Microsoft finds itself playing a role that it's not accustomed to, the underdog.
On Xbox One, our goals were pretty simple. It was beat Sony's performance and get to market faster than anyone's ever developed a game console.
We were new to the market, brand new product in an established environment. Sony already had a huge installed base by the time we hit the streets. They'd been out about 18 months before we launched.
The challenge on Xbox One was all about time to market and maximize performance. We knew what Sony's architecture was, we knew we had to trump that architecture, and we knew we had to develop it in 18 months faster than anybody had ever developed a game console.
Well, this is a very big night. It's a night that we've been waiting for over 18 months.
The launch itself was really successful. When we did launch, we sold out every one we had. We had a pretty good launch lineup, and we just kept building momentum. Xbox Live launched a year later. We pushed out around the world in the year.
Look at this mode, look, I'm on fire!
So we were very, very happy with the launch of Xbox.
By August 2005, 13 million Xbox consoles are sold in the US. A strong showing for a newcomer. But it's short of Sony's established base of 30 million PlayStation 2s. While the original Xbox is anything but a failure, Microsoft has already set its sights on the next round.
The Xbox 360 program started back in 2002.
The codename for the product was Xenon.
The lessons learned from the first Xbox prove invaluable.
When we think about Xbox, it was really kind of learning the business. Microsoft had never done a game console before, hadn't really done a hardware business at this scale before. So there was a lot to learn, just about how to run a business, how to sustain the business.
So they wanted to get a foothold in the market. They wanted to figure out what worked.
As we got into the market, we realized there was a lot more to the business that we didn't understand. Actually building a successful business on the financial side and building a bigger ecosystem where more of our partners could make profit.
One of the big lessons we learned from Xbox was being more of a worldwide company. Xbox was kind of a US-centric product. I mean, it's a bunch of Microsoft guys, team members that got together and built a product. One of the things we learned was, hey, we didn't build a box that was as universally appealing as we'd have liked. So in Japan, it was a little intimidating. It was black, it was big. It wasn't something that they necessarily wanted to have in their home. In Europe, again, the black box wasn't as universally as interesting.
At that time, we didn't know exactly what our architecture was going to be. We didn't know when Sony was going to launch. We didn't know what Nintendo's position in the market was going to be. So rather than picking a final architecture early on, we built a flexible architecture with some high-level goals and premises around how should we make architectural trade-offs.
We got all together and said, how can we build the best overall product? And we went through a process of time where we actually sat down and developed a plan, basically a 30-page document that said, here's what we'd like to build. And we did that in the context of a worldwide product. How do we address the Japanese market? How do we address the European market? How do we address the US market? How do we look at other regions around the world? How do we attract a broader audience? How do we make it great for the hardcore gamer?
As the Xenon team puts together a game plan for the Xbox 360, Microsoft starts looking for the next generation technology that will power it. Armed with the lessons learned with the first Xbox, Microsoft begins to piece together their next console bit by bit.
We want to be second to market again. So what that meant to us was that we felt we had to be ready in 2005.
It's important for Microsoft to come out first because if they want to beat Sony, who's the market leader 2 generations in a row, they need every single tool they can use, including the early launch, to get ahead of Sony.
Started working on a 360 plan, putting together the early details, working on what we thought the hardware plan was going to be.
It's a really interesting process because you're always balancing this ultimate design that you want to have against technological constraints, schedules constraints. All these things can affect what you can do from a design standpoint. So you look at things and say, well, this is the ultimate experience. And then we go over to the hardware team and they say, oh my goodness, if you do that, that adds 2 cents. We're like, 2 cents? Oh, well, 2 cents times X million is a lot of money.
Well, there's some basic features, if you will, that we want in all of the 360 games. High definition games is one of them, for example. Games that look great in 16:9 high definition. Games that have full surround 5.1 audio.
Well, the HD era, we're really on this turning point for the industry. From the 2D to 3D generation of gaming, all sorts of things changed. A lot of rules changed, a lot of the players changed, and obviously the experience that the gamer received changed as well. We're now on the next shift, which is really from 3D to high def.
The real key to the system itself is making sure we have a system that's powerful to developers to really get to what we call the HD era. We made a decision a while back to really invest in the system memory. And so as a result, developers now have 512 megs of system memory to deal with. Enough memory for them to really deliver a true next generational and high definition experience.
Wanted to get a lot more CPU and graphics horsepower. It quickly became clear that to get the level of performance that we needed, NVIDIA and ATI were the 2 front runners. The big advantage that ATI gave for us is they shared our vision of the HD era. ATI shared that vision of how can we maximize the real performance for real games. We weren't driving toward a spec, we weren't driving toward a marketing campaign. We were driving for how do we make real games as good as they possibly can be.
And then once you're ready to go for HD, we're ready there for you because we've got Dolby 5.1, we've got high def, everything's ready to go for you.
At the heart of the Xbox 360 are 3 IBM CPUs that, when combined, are 80 times more powerful than the original Xbox.
We picked IBM over a bunch of different suppliers, mainly because of the efficiency of their architecture. By efficiency, I mean trying to cram as much CPU horsepower into a very small package, a very small console. Those were key elements in picking IBM.
They were willing to work with us in terms of giving us control of our own destiny, in terms of silicon manufacturing. We can control that. So you want to find a partner who's willing to work with you in that respect. So long-term roadmap, partnership, lots of business issues again, but ultimately it was the right partnership for us.
Microsoft wants developers to harness all this newfound power as easily as possible.
A real asset that we built in Xbox was our partnership with both developers and publishers, something we focused on very early and something historically Microsoft has actually done pretty well.
Microsoft's also done a really good job of supporting third-party developers. Ubisoft, THQ, EA, and Activision, and they all have said Microsoft's been really helpful.
Also, efforts are redoubled to capture the interest of Japanese game companies.
Japanese game developers has been a tough group for us because we haven't been as successful in Japan. But I think we're doing some really smart things now. We're forging some great partnerships with some of the best historical Japanese developers.
Sakaguchi-san, as the creator of Final Fantasy, is going to be doing 2 individual proprietary pieces of intellectual property that will be exclusive for Xbox 360. Mizuguchi-san is one of my favorite developers. We all love things like Space Channel 5 and Rez. And of course, Okamoto-san, most famous for his work on Resident Evil.
They've done a good job of getting Japanese developers on board.
And through it all, Bill Gates himself keeps tabs on the progress.
On Xbox One, I met Bill 2 times in 2 different meetings during the course of a 4-year program. On Xbox 360, for the first year of the development, we were in the boardroom almost once a month. He was so excited about the product that he just wanted to get involved and wanted to be down here on the Millennium campus helping us.
While Microsoft works on the insides of the new Xbox, it focuses an equal amount of attention on the outside.
We thought maybe this could have a hamburger in it, but so we didn't really think that it worked that well.
Xbox 360 is shaping up to be a gaming powerhouse, and Microsoft wants to make sure that its new system's appearance reflects its amazing abilities.
We started with this guy, which was a really wonderful box. It worked really well, but let's just say it needed a little more love in terms of design aesthetic. So we thought, well, where can we go with this?
If we think about Japan and some of the issues we've had in Japan as regards the inability of us really to get going, quite frankly, one of the core issues has been the design of the current Xbox.
That system was gigantic. It was heavy, and it didn't appeal to anybody but Americans and a few Europeans. It was way too big for the Japanese market, and Microsoft tanked in Asia. Tanked. I mean, they didn't sell badly, they sold horribly.
So the criteria I laid out for the brand team at that time was, we have got to be able to satisfy the Japanese gamer. We actually looked at 5 different design companies from around the world. It narrowed down to 2 companies.
One was Astro in San Francisco, and another one is hers in Osaka. Got to a point where designs were going back and forth between hers and Astro. And so they started playing with what's the button going to look like? What happens when you actually have enough ports for gameplay and all those kind of things? And so it started really drawing in.
The design of the box and the form factor that we ultimately landed on is always a trade-off between mechanical constraints, being thermal and physical constraints, versus industrial design. It's very similar to an architect and a civil engineer building a skyscraper. The best looking design may not be able to be built. The most robust design may be very straightforward, ugly, not the type of thing you'd want to actually build.
What we wanted was this breathe-in quality, where it breathes in. You get this sense of power as though you're in the blocks and starting a race, or the analogy was Bruce Lee pulling back to do a punch.
On one end of the spectrum, if you make the box too small, you end up with a box that is too hot, too loud, with the fans having to churn a lot of air through that box to cool it off, too high of a cost in miniaturization cost. The other end of the spectrum, if you build only a mechanical design solution, you end up with a very large, ugly box. It may be quiet, but it's not aesthetically pleasing.
We did user studies. We went through around the world, Germany, France, England, United States, parts of Asia, talked to different designers, talked to different gamers and said, what are you interested in? And it started taking shape. kind of had some interesting changes here. This one came from Japan, and it had a very nice pillowy feature to it and had the handle. Again, it was not a practical box. Really, what we were trying to do is see what people responded to. It really ran the gamut. I mean, you got this kind of guy, which has some nice features on it in terms of the chrome and all that, but it's still pretty boxy and might look like someone else you might know. This came from a very high-end designer. We thought maybe it could have a hamburger in it, but so we didn't really think that it worked that well. Oop, look at that. There was some sleek designs too that brought in things like glass textures, and these are really explorations.
So what you will see is somewhat concave. It has what we call the iconic gesture. That gesture is iconic enough that makes it distinctive, but not too bold and brash that will make it look, if you will, out of fashion after a couple of years.
And what we ended up with was this design. And you can see there's a lot of what was here has been incorporated into the final design. You get the gesture, you get the breathe in, you get a design aesthetic that is more appealing to a wider audience. You get some of the chrome and some of the finer lines, the organic lines, but there's still an architectural quality about it, and a simple quality that allows you to really get a sense that this is a high-quality machine. You can see the difference between the two.
A few finishing touches round out the final package.
You'll be able to take the faceplate off and snap on a faceplate either absolutely personalized to what you want to do.
This is our favorite feature too, is that we have the ring of light. It's the thing that tells you how many controllers are actually attached to the system. And you see that this is in the upper left position. Okay, you ready for this big move? All right, ready, here we go. So it's in position 1 now. Look at that, woo!
An equal amount of care is given to the design of the Xbox 360 controller.
So the areas where we put lots and lots of energy into this is the gamepad itself. People are going to be holding this for hours on end, playing games, playing different types of games that use the control sets in different ways.
We did tons and tons of user testing, and we went through all kinds of iterations, some of them even laughable, like this one. And what we did is we actually tried different sizes and shapes. So you kind of go, oh, how's that feel? You'd pass this around a whole basket full of these and go, how's that feel in your hand? Oh, I don't know, that feels pretty good. And then you hand it to somebody else and they go, no, that doesn't feel good.
One of the key elements to making the console as unique as it is the decision to go wireless on the gamepads.
The Xbox 360 controller is not a revolutionary controller. It's an evolutionary controller. Microsoft took the basic shape of the S controller from the Xbox and refined it and polished it and crafted it to a much more ergonomically fit controller. It's lighter, it's very sturdy, it feels good in your hands.
But no matter how well designed a controller is, no matter how slick a console looks, it all comes down to the games, and Microsoft knows it. Microsoft knows that having a solid launch lineup can play a big role in the success of the Xbox 360. And that's why it's pulling out the big guns.
The world's best game creators are building experiences on our console that satisfy gamers and actually reflect the change that our industry and that the consumers are facing right now.
There's no super stinkers out there. You've got 4 games from Activision, all pretty hefty games. They're all franchise games except for Gun. You've got a bunch of EA games, all franchise games. Madden, Tiger Woods, FIFA, all that. They really show off the Xbox 360's power.
Well, I think the key is going to be the games. And when we look at what we have on slate for the launch window, finally, Rare in the UK will come to bear on this platform. Perfect Dark Zero will be in the launch window. The GoldenEye team have been working on Perfect Dark Zero now for close to 3 years.
The other thing about the launch is that Microsoft's 3 games, Cameo, Elements of Power, Perfect Dark Zero, and Project Gotham Racing 3, are all some of the best games on the system in terms of both playability and graphics.
Gamers get a glimpse of the new system and its games at E3 and X05.
At E3, we showed some games. They were okay, but it was early development, early hardware. X05 was really our coming out party. We wanted to show people what great games we're going to have on the platform at launch.
When we came to X05, We were relieved, happy, satisfied that these games actually were going to come through. This was going to be a good launch after all.
Turning on the Xbox 360 reveals plenty of new features, including a major upgrade to Xbox Live.
So, to start off the experience, we've got this new great button. It's the Xbox Guide button. It not only helps you get through your overall experience on the gaming system, but it also allows you to turn on the system. There are 4 blades. There's a Live blade, games, media, and system. If you're hooked up to Live, the blade that'll default is the Live blade, and it gives you all the access to your message center, to your friends, and also to Marketplace. And Marketplace is a place where you'll be able to download new gamer pictures, new tracks, different themes that go with your faceplates, or just themes in general. On the Games blade, you have the ability to look at your achievements, how many games you've played. The Media blade gives you access to all of your digital entertainment. You have access to music, so you can hook in an iRiver. Also, you can plug in a camera, set up a slideshow, play music over it.
In Xbox Live now, we create what we call gamer zones. In gamer zones, you can kind of place yourself where you want to be on the spectrum of gamers. So if you're just kind of a recreational gamer, we have a gamer zone called Recreation. But if you're a really hardcore gamer and you really like to play hard and you want to win that world championship, we have Pro.
When the Xbox 360 launches on November 22nd, 2005, Microsoft tries a new approach to pricing.
So there are 2 versions of the Xbox 360 product. The first version is the Xbox 360 Core System, which is a low-cost value system that allows people to get into the product, plays every game, loses no long-term features. You can upgrade to the Core System to the full 360 system at any time through aftermarket accessories. The Xbox 360 system, on the other hand, was optimized to have everything you need out of the box for a great gaming experience. It's optimized for high definition, for the hard drive, for Xbox Live, with all the cables and connections you need, wireless connectivity with wireless gamepads. That's the system where the highest value is packed into that system for the gamer that wants the ultimate next-generation experience.
For the first time ever, a console will ship in all 3 major markets of the world in the same holiday. So you will see North America, quickly followed by Europe, and then followed by Japan.
As the Xbox 360 takes its first steps into the world, Microsoft is already preparing for the future.
The 360's primary upgrade path is the software architecture that we've designed. It's designed to be scalable and upgradable. On the hardware space, because we designed a console that had a flexible architecture, for example, the PCI Express bus exists on the motherboard. So doing a derivative motherboard and a derivative product where we wanted to add features would be very easy for us to do.
That's the interesting thing about this business is the finish line is the beginning. In many, many ways. Once it gets out there, people are going to take control of it, and the community will start driving it, and they'll grow it and build it, and they'll turn it into something that none of us expected.
Yeah, we're going after people. People on Earth is our market. Our strategy is to provide a great platform for game creators to do their best work. It's that simple.
Obviously, they want to do well with the system. They want to hammer Sony in all of its sell points. They want to kick their ass in online. They want to kick their ass in the interface. They want to have a bunch of great games. They want to get out there a year ahead of them and really, really take it to Sony. They want to be first. They want to be the #1 console maker in the market.
I'm really excited about seeing the launch. It's been over 3 years focusing on this product, and to look back at early slide decks, PowerPoint vision of what the product could be 3 years ago to what we actually are delivering now, we got to 99% of that original vision, which is amazing to me.
Mind of a true adventurer.
You want to see Indiana Jones? That is Marion C. Cooper.
A legend is created.
I think the original movie is like the greatest piece of escapist entertainment ever filmed.
It was the most expensive picture that RKO had ever made.
Time diminishes his name.
People don't really know what the story is anymore.
But he is reborn greater than ever.
And action!
I've been trying it all my life. One way or the other, I've been trying to do this. I finally got it done.
This is the life of King Kong. mysterious island, dangerous natives, dinosaurs, and a giant ape.
And cut.
Cut!
They're quick.
It's just another day in New Zealand for Peter Jackson and the cast of Universal's upcoming film, King Kong.
Pete is going to try and take the audience into another environment, transport them, and allow them to feel that sense of the unknown.
Keep it kind of, don't be too shy.
This retelling of the classic Kong movie is set to be the blockbuster of the year. But where did the story come from? How was it made? And who was behind it? To answer these questions, we have to go back to the early 1900s. Few people in the world lead lives as amazing as Marion C. Cooper's.
Marion Cooper is one of the most outsized, phenomenal characters who ever dabbled in pictures.
You want to see Indiana Jones? That is Marion C. Cooper. There's never been anybody like him, and I doubt there'll ever be anybody like him again.
As a young kid growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, he had two dreams in his life, and one was to become an explorer, and the other was to become a soldier. So those were two of the things that really drove his early life and what actually led him to get into World War I.
During the Great War, Cooper takes to the skies as one of the world's first combat airmen. After cheating death in the skies of Europe during World War I, Cooper volunteers in another conflict.
After World War I, Cooper was in a group called the Kosciuszko Squadron. And essentially they were helping the Polish Air Force with this mercenary group of American airmen.
It's here that he meets filmmaker Ernest Schoedsack.
They just met by chance on a railway station. And Schoedsack was like 6'6", and Cooper was like 5'9", 10. So they were like this long and short of it, and they were almost seeming like kind of opposites, but they just sort of connected. They just struck up this friendship, and at one point after the war, they said, let's get together, let's do this and that.
He and Ernst Schoedsack, who was his partner in pictures early on, had this phenomenal history that had nothing to do with films. The escaping from this prison camp in Russia, having been caught during World War I, flyers and pilots and everything.
Well, the first thing that Cooper and Schoedsack did is they spent a lot of time at the American Geographical Society looking at maps and kind of like, what is the world like? What are the places of the world? What are tribes like? He was attracted to the idea of so-called primitive man or even savage man. What ended up happening is they decided, well, let's hook up with one of these tribes, these nomadic tribes, and just go with them on one of their migrations.
To obtain funding for this grand venture, Cooper turns to an old friend.
This woman named Margaret Harrison, who was actually a spy for the U.S. government in the First World War. Basically, she said, I'll help put up half the money for your expedition, but I get to come along. And there was like a woman on this trip. Schoedsack did not like the idea of a woman on the trip. It was like, what the, woman going on with us to Persia? So it was the three of them.
Now fully funded, Cooper and company head out to uncharted territory to shoot their first film. The risks and lengths that they'll go to will surpass anything attempted by filmmakers of their time.
Here we go, please. Shooting and roll silence.
And rolling.
Play back and action.
Throws her down. She looks dead, and he prods.
There's a lot of Pete in Carl Denham and Cooper, and in many ways they're both adventurous. Cooper and Peter Jackson are these adventurous types who take big risks, gamblers in life.
One last big prod.
As Marion Cooper, Ernest Schoedsack, and Margaret Harrison travel through the Middle East, they risk life and limb to capture some of the most magnificent footage ever seen. The end result is a type of film called natural drama.
The first movie he did was called Grass. It's called Grass because grass was essentially the key to life for these nomadic people.
Marion Cooper was really on the frontiers of a new kind of filmmaking, showing people who lived more cloistered, landlocked lives in the U.S. these scenes of native people and animals and exotic locations that they would never experience.
The one comment that anybody has who ever worked on a Marion Cooper picture was he would come in, whatever picture it was, and look around, throw his hat down, stomp on it, and say, "No, I want it bigger!"
The other movie they did was Chang, and Chang means elephant. Cooper's whole concept was, let's have a different type of drama if we're in the jungle.
After Chang, Cooper makes a third film titled The Four Feathers.
And then Cooper goes to New York, and he's involved as a pioneering executive in the field of civil aviation. He started percolating this idea of doing this movie.
His new idea is to shoot a film based on his travels and adventures, as well as another personal interest.
Well, Marion Cooper was fascinated by apes, and to him, the idea of a gorilla embodied all the terrors that he had also survived. He started writing this script when he was in New York, bouncing ideas off a guy named W. Douglas Burden. And Burden had made an expedition to Komodo Island, where he famously brought back the Komodo dragons. These two explorers concocted the ultimate tall tale, going to this lost world, but then also coming to civilization. And then finally he got a call from David Selznick, the famous producer, and Selznick wanted Cooper to join him in Hollywood at RKO Studios. And Cooper said, "Yeah, sure, I'll come if I can make my giant gorilla picture." Selznick said, "Okay," then they got rolling.
As Cooper dreams up his giant gorilla feature, a man named Willis O'Brien releases the first film to feature stop-motion animation, The Lost World.
Stop motion was in its infancy in the silent era. The greatest example of that is The Lost World.
Willis O'Brien kind of pioneered this stop-motion animation, which is this really incredibly laborious thing where you create puppets, let's say, and you just move them incrementally, one frame at a time, film it, move it another frame.
He's a hero to so many people working in visual effects today because he was able to create real character with these puppets. Better character than what's often done today with spending millions of dollars. He was able to achieve with his hands.
O'Brien's next project is an ambitious film titled Creation.
There had been a project at RKO called Creation, which is basically kind of an Atlantis story. There were dinosaurs on this island and adventures and so on.
And that was going to be this huge, big epic. RKO had poured so much money into that movie, it was insane. I mean, it was going to be one of the most expensive movies ever made.
David O. Selznick, along with Marion Cooper, killed Creation.
Because the budget was so large. I mean, they couldn't put it on the shelf because there's too much invested. So basically, Selznick asked Cooper, take a look at this, and is it worth saving? Should we stick with it?
And they had shot a test reel with a Tyrannosaurus. That test reel happened to coincide with an idea that Marion Cooper had, stemming out of his documentary work. He thought, wouldn't it be great if we had, like, a gorilla fighting a Komodo dragon?
He goes, you know what? I could do my gorilla like this. He saw in this technique of stop-motion animation a chance.
In Cooper's eyes, stop-motion animation is the perfect way to bring his idea to life. He plans to title his movie The Beast, but later changes it to King Kong.
Marion Cooper went to Willis O'Brien. He said, can you make an ape like that? And O'Brien says, sure. So I think we got something. So they did a test reel. And they showed this to the executives at RKO, and they said, do it.
And just like that, Marion Cooper and his old friend Ernest Schoedsack begin work on what will become one of the most expensive and lavish films of its time. As King Kong nears completion, a marketing blitz unlike any other is unleashed.
Before the release of King Kong, there was a big build-up, in New York where it premiered. There was all these Kong is coming and the radio spots, where they had like screaming females. It was like this big phenomenon.
It was the most expensive picture that RKO had ever made.
The film ultimately cost RKO more than $500,000. To save on cost, many of the models and sets from Creation are reused by Cooper. Finally, on March 2nd, 1933, RKO releases King Kong.
I think the original movie is like the greatest piece of escapist entertainment ever filmed.
One thing that I was struck by immediately upon seeing the original King Kong was how modern it is, how it's a movie that really is about the modern age and skyscrapers and airplanes and sort of the transformation of the New York skyline. The end of an era of exploration in which there are actually uncharted places in the globe that people didn't know about, that still had an aura of mystery about them. It was a fascinating movie.
It engaged me on an emotional level, and I felt so sad for Kong. I felt so sorry for him. I wept, and that stayed with me ever since.
King Kong comes along and blows the lid off of everything. It shows people things that they never even dreamed of. It takes them to a world that was beyond their imagination.
When Kong was originally created, it must have been an extraordinary thing to watch. Very, very powerful. The fact that technically you could make an 18-inch stop-motion puppet be 25, 30-foot gorilla convincingly and have heart and soul, it was such an achievement, and obviously it was a massive draw. I mean, it was a massive hit and lasted the test of time.
Filmgoers are wowed by the spectacular visuals of King Kong.
I remember it quite clearly. I remember certain iconic scenes, obviously, top of the Empire State Building, the scene where the hand comes through the window and pulls Anne out from the hotel room.
King Kong just had about everything in it. They made up their own rules as they went along, essentially. The only reason it's not in color is because the visual effects and the composites they did were just too challenging for color film to match different film stocks and different composite elements. But it had traveling mats, it had a rear screen projection, it had these great miniature sets that had screens built in them.
It's got lost islands, hidden in fog, dinosaurs. It's got natives who sacrifice the girl to the monster, and the monster turns out to be a giant ape, and the giant ape has to battle dinosaurs, Tyrannosaurus Rex fights, and all this great stuff culminating to New York and the Empire State Building.
I think the special effects in Kong had a great impact on future effects. Everyone certainly looked back on Kong as an influence, whether it was the use of miniatures or the use of stop motion or the creation of personalities.
It has tremendous atmosphere, tremendous visual effects, not just the stop motion animation, but the paintings, the photography. It sets up this wonderful alternate reality. It's one of the greatest films anybody's ever done.
And the script by Schoedzak's wife, Ruth Rose, along with other contributors, makes Kong more than just a special effects showcase.
Ruth Rose understood him kind of the balance of the emotional side of it and the excitement of the world that they were creating.
King Kong was a Beauty and the Beast story in that it had this incredible ferocious beast, Kong, and the most gorgeous young woman, Fay Wray. It was something that attracts audiences to take that dichotomy of beauty and beast, and yet it's not just beast. It's a creature that has caring and consideration and emotion and pain and hurt, and you get to experience all of that.
Two characters in there, Robert Armstrong, who was the movie producer, and Bruce Cabot, who's the taciturn first mate on the USS Venture. That's Marion Cooper and Ernst Schoedsack. That's their characters. Ruth Rose based the character on Marion Cooper.
King Kong takes in nearly $2 million while in theaters, an astounding number for 1933.
A lot of people think King Kong saved RKO from bankruptcy. Well, it didn't. RKO did go into bankruptcy, but King Kong helped reverse their failing fortunes, and it helped lift the entire film industry. There's all sorts of people say that it was like a metaphor for the Depression.
In the coming years, various follow-ups and sequels are made, including a remake of Kong from Paramount in 1976, starring Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange.
It's a fascinating specimen of 70s Hollywood hokum. People who really worship the original King Kong see it as this grotesque bastardization of the original movie.
By 2000, the name King Kong is diminished.
People know about King Kong, whatever generation, even the younger generation, they know that King Kong is a gorilla, and they have images of King Kong on top of the Empire State Building, but people don't really know what the story is anymore.
But that's all about to change. By 2004, King Kong is alive only to his most dedicated fans.
I guess I'm called a film historian. Well, what you're looking at right here is the last remaining King Kong puppet. They built 2 for the movie in 1933. He's the prize of the place.
But in 2005, Kong is born again, thanks to a director named Peter Jackson.
You're terrified you're gonna die. I've always thought what a great idea it would be to do a remake that tried to capture that feeling of the original film.
I already knew that Pete was a big fan of the original movie.
King Kong obviously influenced Peter Jackson to become a filmmaker.
After the amazing success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Jackson starts to make the movie of his dreams. The lessons learned from those films are applied to a brand new production of King Kong.
He said to me, Andy, I'd like you to be involved in Kong, and I'd like to take what we've learned from how we created Gollum and put it into practice on this 24-foot gorilla. My thoughts were, wow, that's some challenge.
I expect Peter Jackson's version of King Kong to be excellent. I can't imagine why Jackson would do anything that would dishonor the old film. In fact, I think quite the opposite is true. He will try to embellish his film with scenes that may not have been available to shoot, or just something he's created on his own.
Jackson adds his own unique touch to this new version of Kong.
I knew that if Pete was going to make it, he would make Kong very much a character, not just some kind of generic gorilla. And I knew that it would be an exciting and very challenging acting proposition.
An all-star cast brings the classic Kong characters back to life.
Jack Black's performance of Carl Denham in our version of the film, I think, really mirrors a lot of Pete's drive as a director. I think Pete and Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens wrote a lot of Peter into that, I'm sure.
I think Pete wanted to go younger because he wanted him to be like a Orson Welles type of character. Somebody who was really cocky and really full of beans and sort of a frustrated filmmaker.
I want the cast and crew on the ship within the hour.
No, Carl, you can't do this.
Tell them the studio pressured us into an early departure.
It's not ethical.
What are they gonna do, sue me? Huh? They can get in line. I'm not gonna let them kill my film.
My character, Jack Driscoll, is a playwright, screenwriter, and he's pulled from his element and forced to go rescue the girl of his dreams.
That changes everything.
Take it out! Behind the wall!
Wall! There's the wall ahead!
We met Fay Ray very briefly, yes, just before she passed away. It was incredible. I mean, I'd never met her before, and she was 96, and I shook her hand and started crying. I mean, I started crying. I couldn't help it. I thought, oh, this is terrible. I'm meeting Fay Ray and I'm blubbing.
It was great watching Peter and her together because this was his schoolboy crush. He fell in love with her at 9 years old. He then introduced me, said, this is the new Andara. She gave me her blessing, and her parting words were actually, Andara's in safe hands. And so that was great. It really touched me.
Universal Studios releases King Kong on December 14, 2005. For Peter Jackson, this isn't just another movie. It's the fulfillment of a lifelong dream.
I've been trying it all my life. One way or the other, I've been trying to do this. I finally got it done.
Someone once asked me, would Cooper mind, Peter Jackson making Kong? And I think if Cooper came back to our planet from wherever he's at, I think he would totally approve.
His love for Anne and the way that the story plays itself out right up to the summit of the Empire State Building is what makes Kong so special, so mythic, iconic.
There are enormous expectations riding on this movie.
The anticipation for Peter Jackson's King Kong is enormous. Kong is such a beloved character because of the strength of that character, because of the emotion. I think the whole world wants to see Peter Jackson's version of that.
I hope they take away something of what excited me when I was 9 years old. We've done nothing but try to make a piece of escapist entertainment that will sweep you away. This is where it goes way beyond being Godzilla or just a monster bashing up a city. I mean, this is King Kong.